Chapter 123. In the Chu Emperor district, the sky had already darkened. Seated on the azure jadeite dragon seat, Chu Tianjiao glanced at the sky as he spoke. It's getting late, let's end the banquet here. I'm sure the June Lin banquet tomorrow will be even more spectacular. After speaking, Chu Tianjiao stood up. Although he wasn't old, he appeared to be extremely mature. Those from the royal clan grew up in the midst of scheming, and were naturally more mature compared to their peers. As the sound of Chu Tianjiao's voice faded, the representatives from the various powers all stood up and toasted Chu Tianjiao. After a toast, Chu Tianjiao left the banquet table, laughing and chatting with those beside him. Qin Wenyan gazed at the departing Chu Tianjiao. He could faintly sense that when Chu Tianjiao walked, he was actually half a step behind the person beside Luo Qianqiu. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to notice this change, but because Qin Wenyan knew who the person beside Luo Qianqiu was, he paid extra attention to it. The Nine Mystical Palace was the supreme power behind Chu, Snowcloud, and the other 10 countries. Even if only a few of them came to Chu, their statuses would be comparable to the future emperor of Chu. Chu Tianjiao didn't dare to offend them. Qin Wenyan naturally understood why the Nine Mystical Palace had such great influence. A sect that was above the royal clan, and even the empires. There was no other reason than strength. The higher Wu Xiu ascended, the more terrifying his strength would be, and the greater the disparity between him and those below him. Hence, there were many Yuanfu cultivators in Chu, and countless arterial circulation cultivators. However, the great hurdle of Yuanfu was exceedingly rare. As for those who had the ability to step into Heavenly Dipper, they had already left Chu. Chu was too small, and couldn't accommodate them. Hence, they either joined the Nine Mystical Palace, or joined other powers similar to the Nine Mystical Palace. What are you thinking about? Unknowingly, Mu Rou appeared beside Qin Wenyan. Noticing Qin Wentian's gaze, she couldn't help but smile. Nothing. It seems that you are in a good mood. Qin Wenyan revealed a warm smile when he saw Mu Rou. I still have to thank you. Only now did I know that Senior Ram was an extraordinary character. Many years ago, he was the champion of the June Lin banquet, and now he has extremely high achievements in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions. Because of that painting of yours, I received a promise from Senior Ram, which helped me greatly. Mu Rou gently spoke. She didn't explain too clearly, but Qin Wenyan could already guess what she meant. It's just a gift for your birthday. Don't take it to heart, or else it would mean that you don't treat me as a friend. Qin Wenyan intentionally spoke, causing Mu Rou's eyelashes to flutter, adding to her beauty. This fellow seemed to be able to cause people to feel a faint warmth in their hearts. What about my birthday? Are you going to give me a present too? At this moment, a mischievous voice drifted over. Qin Wenyan turned his head and saw the silhouette of Mo Qingqing. The beautiful girl had a faint smile on her face, and it was as if a ray of sunshine had been imprinted in people's hearts. What do you want? Qin Wenyan laughed. I have to think about it carefully. I can't waste a gift from a third-level divine inscriptionist. Mo Qingqing pretended to be deep in thought, appearing extremely adorable. The spectators who had yet to disperse were all envious of Qin Wenyan. This fellow was truly lucky with women, surrounded by beauties. Luo Huan, Qin Yao, and Mu Rou were all extremely beautiful. In addition to the number one beauty of Chu, Mo Qingqing, Qin Wentian's treatment was truly something to be jealous of. Don't make things too difficult for me. Qin Wenyan shrugged as he stared at the expression on Mo Qingqing's face. Don't worry, just remember this. Mo Qingqing laughed. Work hard tomorrow, I'm very optimistic about your performance. After speaking, Mo Qingqing smiled and departed. Mu Rou, who was at the side, stared at her departing back as a strange feeling surfaced in her heart. Being together with Mo Qingqing, even if she had a pretty face, she would still be overshadowed by Mo Qingqing. In the spectator stands, Autumn Snow gazed at the young man in the distance, her countenance extremely complicated. The young man who was once engaged to her was despised and abandoned by her. Now, there seemed to be no lack of beauties who were more outstanding than her by his side. Based on his talent and strength, the distance between them would only grow further and further in the future. That night outside the Bai residence, the resolute voice of the young man was still the same. Those casual words of his were gradually becoming reality. Autumn snow, let's go. Bai Qingsong, who was at the side, spoke. Autumn Snow nodded her head lightly as she left together with her father. Many of the spectators dispersed, preparing to find a place to rest for the night. However, there were still many who didn't leave, intending to stay the night and wait for the commencement of the June Lin banquet the next day. Boss, do you want to go shopping together? Fan Lin narrowed his eyes as he stared at Qin Wenin. Heaven's Wonder has set a payout rate of 1/400. Why don't you go and bet a few yuan meteor stones? Although the chances are slim, what if your luck is really heaven-defying? Such a high payout rate? Qin Wendian was startled. From the start, Heaven's Wonder simply didn't think highly of him. However, it was understandable. With Luo Qianxiu, Sikong Mingyue and the other experts present, it would be extremely difficult for him to kill his way to the top of the June Lin banquet. Today, standing on the stage of the June Lin banquet, Qin Wenyan didn't dare to say that he would definitely be able to become the top ranker. They are looking down on you. Fatty shrugged his shoulders, as though he was intentionally trying to provoke Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan stared at Fan Lu as he stated, "Go and play by yourself, I'm preparing to consolidate my cultivation." After which, Qin Wenyan bade farewell to the surrounding spectators before riding on Little Rascal's back and departing the area, akin to a white whirlwind. Royal Capital, Bamboo Lodge. At this moment, a white-haired silhouette was currently sitting by the riverbank, angling for fish. The sound of the flowing water caused people to feel a sense of tranquility and tranquility. "Why are you so free to come here?" the old man asked in a low voice. He already knew that Qin Wendian had arrived behind him. "The June Lin banquet has just ended, so I came here to see if Senior is doing well." Qin Wendian sat down beside Gong Hong. It had already been a long time since Gong Hong's hair had turned white overnight. Qin Wendian was still somewhat worried. After all, Gong Hong's condition that day was extremely poor. "You are truly considerate." A smile appeared in Gong Hong's cloudy eyes. Compared to the time when Qin Wendian met him in the Royal Academy, the current him looked much older. The June Lin banquet is the grandest event in Chu. You should focus on your cultivation. If you can obtain the top 9 rankings, you would be able to obtain rewards. And if you can obtain the first position, you would be able to step into the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion. Gong Hong calmly replied. Although it had been a long time since he paid attention to such matters, he had grown up in the royal capital of Chu during his youth. Naturally, he knew many things. "For a night's time, I can cultivate here at Senior's place." Qin Wendian smiled. "Previously, Senior warned me that if there's a girl I like, I must not miss her. I'm thinking that Senior must have some regrets in the past. Since you have regrets, why don't you try to make up for it?" "Make up for it? How can I make up for it?" Gong Hong shook his head. "Without trying, how would Senior know? Even if I can't make up for it, why don't I try? This doesn't seem to match Senior's warning. Didn't Senior tell me not to miss out on the opportunity to make up for it?" Qin Wendian smiled as he spoke. Gong Hong slowly turned his gaze over. Staring at the radiant smile on the young man's face, his heart involuntarily trembled. Once upon a time, he was also like Qin Wendian, a graceful youth. But now, he was no different from a dead man. Time was truly the cruelest existence in the world. Qin Wendian turned his gaze over, as a radiant smile appeared on his face. He spoke to Gong Hong. "I'm sure Senior must be thinking that if he could return to the time when he was young, he wouldn't have wasted his life." But in reality, for cultivators, as long as one's cultivation base is strong enough, they would be able to return to their youth. Given Senior's current age, you can't be considered old at all. If you are lamenting about the time you missed out on, would you be lamenting about the time you missed out on today? As Qin Wendian spoke, he stared at the towering mountain peak in front of him as he continued in a low voice. "How many people regret the time they lost? But how many people truly want to change? If they want to change, why not seize the present? The past has already passed, the future is too far away. Only focus on the present. The past has passed, the future is too far away. Only focus on the present." Qin Wentian's words caused huge waves to surge in Gong Hong's heart. How could a young man say such words? There was a moment of silence, and only the sound of flowing water could be heard. It was exceptionally peaceful. Ultimately, I'm still inferior to a young man. Gong Hong sighed, as he stood up and slowly walked towards the direction of his hut. It was as though an intense struggle was taking place in his heart. What he missed out on, could he still make up for it today? Qin Wentian didn't follow him. The knot in Gong Hong's heart still needed to be unraveled by himself. He only felt that Gong Hong's powerful cultivation base was something that countless people would be envious of. Why couldn't he cherish what he had now, and do what he wanted to do to make up for his regrets? Even if he failed, he had tried his best. Retrieving a few yuan meteor stones from his interspatial ring, Qin Wentian closed his eyes as he sat there and began his cultivation, instantly entering the dreamscape. Astral light revolved around his body, and as the night grew darker, the stars in the night sky were as bright as ever. Rays of light cascaded down onto the body of the young man, flowing through the river. Far away, on the roof of the hut, Gong Hong sat there, basking in the starlight as he stared at the young man by the river. A quiet smile could be seen on his face. This young man was even more outstanding compared to him in the past. How could he not like such a young man? I'll leave after the June Lin banquet. Let's see if you are able to dominate the world today. Gong Hong smiled as he spoke. It was as though a ray of light shone in his heart. At this moment, he seemed to have let go of his burdens, and his entire person felt relaxed. Chapter 124. Qin Wentian cultivated for a night in the bamboo house, and left early the next morning. The second round of the June Lin banquet would be held today, and before the sun had even risen, the Chu Emperor district was already filled with countless silhouettes. Not far away from the Chu Emperor district, in the Drunken Wonder branch of Heaven's Wonder, there were also many silhouettes gathered there. In the center of the Drunken Wonder's great hall, there was a gigantic dragon-shaped jade table that exuded an air of nobility. Although it was somewhat unsophisticated, this was still a casino. There were 18 positions on the dragon-shaped jade table, and each position had a name inscribed on it. These were the names of the 18 participants that had advanced to the second round of the June Lin banquet. Next to the names were the odds for these people to advance to the next round's top 9, top 3, and first place respectively. All three odds were clearly written. The payout rate for Luo Qianqiu to become the champion is actually 1-2. Such a low payout rate shows how highly Heaven's Wonder regards Luo Qianqiu. I wonder why Heaven's Wonder has so much faith in Luo Qianqiu. Some people silently speculated, but there were still many who bet on Luo Qianqiu to become the champion. Although the payout rate was low, it still showed that the probability of Luo Qianqiu becoming the champion was very high. However, there were some who thought differently. They felt that Heaven's Wonder might have intentionally set such a low payout rate to mislead the crowd. Many people would bet on Luo Qianqiu, and if he didn't obtain first place, the biggest winner would naturally be Heaven's Wonder. At this moment, beside the dragon-shaped jade table, there were two elegant young masters. One of them was holding onto a wine gourd, and it was clear that the wine was extremely good. The people around him weren't that crowded, and no one was too close to him. This was a formless form of respect, because the identity of this person was extraordinary. He was the third-ranked prodigy of the royal capital, Immortal Drunken Wine. The payout rate for this fellow is truly tragic. Immortal Drunken Wine lowered his head, as a smile appeared on his face as he stared at Qin Wentian's name. The payout rate for Qin Wentian becoming one of the top 9 rankings was 1-4. The payout rate for him becoming one of the top 3 rankings was 1-100, and the payout rate for him becoming the champion of the June Lin banquet was even more ridiculously high, 1-400. Do you think we should place a bet? The youth beside Immortal Drunken Wine laughed. Which one? Top 9, top 3, or the champion? Immortal Drunken Wine asked with a smile as he drank a mouthful of wine. The conversation between the two of them aroused the interest of the people around them. There was actually someone who wanted to bet on Qin Wentian to be the champion and the top 3. Was he crazy? There was still hope for the top 9, and there were quite a few people betting on them. However, the top and top 3 would probably be a waste. What do you think? The young man said with a smile. I don't know. You should know that I can't even afford to drink alcohol now. As for the remaining 2 yuan meteor stones, I'll just casually bet on the champion. Immortal Drunken Wine took out 2 second heavenly layer yuan meteor stones and placed them beside Qin Wentian's name. His actions caused many in the crowd to laugh. Immortal Drunken Wine, why don't you use these 2 yuan meteor stones to buy some wine? It should be enough for you to drink for a few months. Someone jeered, not paying much attention to Immortal Drunken Wine. However, someone from Drunken Wonder walked over and recorded Immortal Drunken Wine's bet. At the same time, he gave Immortal Drunken Wine a proof of his bet. If he won, he would be able to use the proof to claim the yuan meteor stones from Heaven's Wonder. Fine, let's do it this way then. For the champion, I'll bet 100 second heavenly layer yuan meteor stones. For the top 3, I'll bet 100 second heavenly layer yuan meteor stones. It's the same for the top 9 as well. The youth beside Immortal Drunken Wine laughed, causing the surrounding crowd to quieten down. 300 second heavenly layer yuan meteor stones were all placed on Qin Wentian, 100 for each spot. Aren't you afraid of losing everything? Immortal Drunken Wine laughed. Why don't you think so? As long as he gets into the top 9, according to the 1, for payout rate, I will earn a total of 100. If he gets into the top 3, I will earn 10,100. If he gets into the top 3, I will earn 10,100. If he wins, I will earn. The youth laughed, causing the hearts of the crowd to tremble. Although it sounded wonderful when one thought about it, it wasn't the case. It was precisely because the possibility of Qin Wentian obtaining the top 3 was too low that the payout rate was so high. In this world, there was no such thing as a free lunch. These 300 yuan meteor stones would most likely be wasted. However, what was the status of this youth? How could he be so generous? If you win, Heaven's Wonder would definitely cry. Immortal Drunken Wine laughed, while the youth beside him was already communicating with the people from Drunken Wonder. Very quickly, someone delivered the proof of his bet. Evidently, this youth wasn't joking. Immortal Drunken Wine, this friend of yours is really funny. At this moment, a voice drifted over. Immortal Drunken Wine glanced over, only to see Chiu. Everyone has their own ambitions. This is my friend's hobby, there's no need for you to worry. Immortal Drunken Wine replied in a carefree manner. Your friend's hobby is indeed unique. Chiu laughed. I'm afraid these 300 yuan meteor stones are going to be thrown away. Immortal Drunken Wine laughed, not intending to argue with Chiu. However, at this moment, a fatty squeezed through the crowd, with over 10 yuan meteor stones in his hands. With a fierce look in his eyes, he placed the yuan meteor stones in the top 3 and top 9 positions respectively. Fatty, I remember that you only bet 5 yuan meteor stones yesterday. This time around, you only bet 10 yuan meteor stones, yet you still dare to shout so loudly. A person laughed, and upon seeing the shameless expression on the fatty's face, the crowd couldn't help but laugh. The fatty was naturally none other than Fan Lu. His lips curled into a grin, as though he didn't mind it at all. Earning yuan meteor stones was the most important thing. He could only hope that that bastard Qin Wentian would put in more effort and kill his way into the top 3. Fan Lu, you should just take those yuan meteor stones back and focus on your cultivation. Chiu mocked. Fatty inclined his head as he grinned at Chiu. I know you are jealous of Qin Wentian. Back then, you made use of Jiang Xiu to deal with Qin Wentian, and in the end, Jiang Xiu's arm was severed by Qin Wentian during the Jun Lin banquet. However, your skin is still as thick as ever, and you don't seem to have the slightest bit of shame. Do you really want me to tell everyone that you have a crush on Qin Wentian? Upon hearing Fan Li's words, the expressions on the faces of the crowd turned extremely interesting. As for Chiu, his countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. He coldly snorted as he placed some yuan meteor stones on Luo Qianqiu and Sikong Mingyue before departing. Let's go, the Jun Lin banquet is about to begin. At this moment, the people of Drunken Wonder all departed. Although they were busy placing their bets, they couldn't afford to miss out on the Jun Lin banquet. In the Chu Emperor district, The people of the royal capital had already prepared a brand new banquet. The participants of the various transcendent powers were all seated at the banquet. Chu Tianjiao's silhouette also appeared on the azure jadeite dragon seat. On the 9 towering platforms, those who had passed the Jun Lin banquet the previous day were all present. Since the Jun Lin banquet was only held once a year, they naturally understood the rules. An old man beside Chu Tianjiao gazed at the 9 towering platforms as he spoke. Congratulations to all the participants for advancing to the second round of the Jun Lin banquet. I'm sure everyone is clear about the rules, so this old man will repeat them once more. For those who are blasted off the platforms, they will be given a chance to return to the platform and challenge another person. If you lose, you will be completely eliminated. If you win, your opponent will be eliminated. Remember, those who return to the platform will only have a single chance to challenge another person. If you succeed, you will be able to remain in the Jun Lin banquet, but you can only passively accept challenges from others. The loser will be directly eliminated. You can freely choose who you want to challenge. But there's one thing you have to remember. After you defeat your opponent, you are not allowed to challenge that person a second time. These are the rules of the second round of the Jun Lin banquet. The remaining 9 will be the top 9 of the Jun Lin banquet and will participate in the ultimate ranking battle. The crowd fell silent. They were all clear about the rules. The second round of the Jun Lin banquet was even more brutal compared to the first round. For the sake of fairness, those who were defeated by others on the same platform would be given a chance to return to the platform. If not, if Luo Qianqiu or Xikong Mingyue intentionally targeted someone, that person would be too unlucky. Hence, they would be given a chance to return to the platform. Not only that, after returning to the platform and successfully defeating your opponent, the person who defeated you earlier would not be allowed to challenge you again. Naturally, if there were 2 powerful people intentionally targeting the same person, you could only blame it on your bad luck. The probability of this happening was extremely low. Those powerful seated participants would rather stay on the platform and rest. There were 2 participants on each of the 9 platforms. On the 9th platform, Qin Wenyin and 7th Knight. At this moment, the spectators were thinking that since the Snow Cloud Country and Chu Country were competing against each other in the Jun Lin banquet, even if they had some grudges in the past, they wouldn't make a move against someone from the Snow Cloud Country for the sake of glory. After all, this place was the Chu Country. On the 4th platform, Orkan's eyes abruptly shifted as he stared at the 9th platform. His gaze was incomparably sharp as it pierced straight towards Qin Wenyin. The hatred he had for Qin Wenyin was something that had existed for a very long time. During the Jun Lin banquet, Qin Wenyin had advanced to the second round, and he had the opportunity to fight against Qin Wenyin. However, Qin Wentian's current strength was different from the past. He was extremely powerful and he had defeated Jiang Xiu. Even if he was facing Orkan, he had no choice but to be more cautious. Qin Yao, do you want to sit here? At this moment, at the side of the Chu Emperor's seat, Xiao LVL suddenly spoke. His gaze was fixed on Qin Yao. No need. Qin Yao's countenance changed. Her countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. Xiao LVL smiled, but he didn't insist. And at this moment, on the first platform, Xikong Mingyue slowly turned his body as he stared at the silhouettes on the platforms behind him. His long robes fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were exceptionally bright. I've long heard that Miss Qin has a brother named Wenyin. Being able to meet him today at the Jun Lin banquet can be considered a fortunate event. I wonder which elite of our Snow Cloud Country is willing to spar against him, allowing me to admire his splendor? Xikong Mingyue's voice was calm as he slowly spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, many in the crowd had expressions of bewilderment on their faces. Although Xikong Mingyue's words were polite and humble, the hidden meaning behind his words wasn't polite at all. In fact, he couldn't even be bothered to personally spar against Qin Wenyin. Could it be that the words Xiao LVL spoke to Qin Yao earlier also had a deeper meaning behind them? Why did Xikong Mingyue suddenly want to deal with Qin Wenyin after Xiao LVL's words? Although he wanted to deal with Qin Wenyin, it was evident that Xikong Mingyue wasn't willing to personally act. Or to put it more accurately, he felt disdain for Qin Wenyin to act. This was because he was extremely proud in his heart. In the entire Snowcloud country, only he and Xiao LVL could be called the twin chosen. Naturally, the relationship between Xiao LVL and Sikong Mingyue was extremely good, as close as brothers. Chapter 125. Qin Wenin abruptly shifted his gaze onto Sikong Mingyue, as a sharp glint of sharpness flickered in his eyes. According to what Mo Qingqing had said, the Crown Prince of Snowcloud Country was no ordinary person. His talent was outstanding, his ambition was great, and his status in Snowcloud Country was extremely high. Sikong Mingyue also stared at him, his eyes as calm as ever. After which, he slowly turned and sat down on the first towering platform, as though all of this had nothing to do with him. And at the same time, on the seventh towering platform, a silhouette abruptly leapt up, akin to a wild goose as he ascended the eighth towering platform. Not only that, he didn't stop there, and continued on his way to the ninth towering platform, standing in front of Qin Wenin. This person was none other than Sixth Knight, a young man with a muscular build. His age shouldn't be young, but his speed was light and graceful. Evidently, his movement technique wasn't bad at all. Interesting, who would have thought that Orkan didn't act, but the first one to act was actually someone from the Snowcloud country. I heard that Xiao LV.I has a lot of prestige in the Snowcloud country, and his relationships with others are extremely good as well. I'm afraid that the relationship between these geniuses from the Snowcloud country wouldn't be bad. As the spectators mused, Sixth Knight had already arrived in front of Qin Wenin. He didn't say a single word, and only stared at Qin Wenin, like a hunter staring at his prey. Qin Wenin stared at his opponent. This person was extremely mature, giving off a sense of steadiness and steadiness. His combat experience should be extremely rich. Rubbing his interspatial ring, an ancient halberd appeared in Qin Wentian's hands. He spoke, "I've already destroyed the divine inscriptions within this halberd. It's not a divine weapon, and there's no amplification effect. You can inspect it." An old man soared through the air, landing beside Qin Wenin. After inspecting the halberd, he nodded his head. "Indeed, it's not a divine weapon. There's no amplification effect, it can be used." This fellow, he actually destroyed the divine inscriptions within a divine weapon. How extravagant! Divine inscriptionists are indeed wealthy. Many in the crowd murmured in their hearts. Was Qin Wenin going to use a divine weapon? It seemed like he was also feeling the pressure during the battle for the top 9 rankings. Sixth Knight coldly laughed. After which, a tyrannical aura erupted forth from him as an astral soul appeared. It was a beast-type astral soul, a gigantic demonic beast with curved horns protruding from its head, resembling an ox god. That tyrannical aura erupted forth as crackling sounds rang out. Sixth Knight's body expanded in size. "Big Brother Ox, please be gentler." Seventh Knight giggled from the side. After which, a booming sound rang out, causing the entire platform to tremble. Sixth Knight took a huge step forward, advancing towards Qin Wenin. Dong dong dong. The Sixth Knight's aura grew stronger and stronger. It was as if he had turned into a mad bull as he charged towards Qin Wenin. Qin Wenin tightly gripped the ancient halberd in his hands. Just as his opponent's attack was about to reach him, Qin Wenin took a step forward and executed the Azure Dragon stance. The silhouette of an Azure Dragon howled as it smashed forward. Rumble! The shadow of the Azure Dragon exploded, and Sixth Knight instantly entered a berserk state. His palms shot forwards, wanting to grab hold of Qin Wentian's heavenly halberd. Qin Wentian's feet moved as he executed the Garuda movement technique. His speed was incomparably fast, yet his opponent was relentless in his pursuit. How strong is the defense of this type of beast-type astral soul? Qin Wenin laughed as he stomped heavily on the ground. The ancient halberd pierced out once again, emitting a sharp whistling sound as the power contained within it was unknown how terrifying it was. Bzz. Sixth Knight's body tilted to the side, evading the ancient halberd. His clumsy and gigantic body was actually extremely agile. At the same time, he directly crushed the surging aura of the ancient halberd. Stretching out his left hand, he grabbed hold of the ancient halberd as he continued his charge towards Qin Wenyin. The crowd discovered that at this moment, Sixth Knight's entire body was enveloped by a layer of demonic light. His aura was terrifying, and the force of his charge was so great that it could even shatter a mountain. This is Brother Ox's Mad Ox Roar, a mid-tier Earth-grade innate technique. Not only that, it requires one to absorb the essence of a powerful ox-type demonic beast in order to master it. Seventh Knight giggled as Sixth Knight's terrifying innate technique slammed towards Qin Wentian's body. When Sixth Knight's body neared Qin Wenyan, that terrifying aura caused Qin Wenyan to feel as though 10,000 horses were galloping towards him, madly slamming into his body. The divine energy within his stellar meridians erupted forth as Qin Wentian's left hand abruptly blasted out. The terrifying falling mountain palms was akin to a true mountain smashing downwards, slamming into Sixth Knight's body. At the instant of impact, the crowd could see a violent flow of air gushing forth. He withstood it? An expression of astonishment appeared on Seventh Knight's face. She was very clear on how ferocious Sixth Knight's attack was. That was definitely a berserk attack. With a cultivation base at the 7th level of arterial circulation, how could Qin Wenyin withstand it with just a palm strike? What she didn't know was that Qin Wentian's divine energy was condensed from the 5th heavenly layer of astral energy and even included some of the 2nd-level divine imprints, the mountain divine imprint. This was the reason why his falling mountain palms had such terrifying power, allowing him to forcefully block his opponent's attack. Roar! Sixth Knight howled in rage as he frenziedly dragged Qin Wenyin along with him, rushing towards the bottom of the platform, wanting to forcefully knock Qin Wenyin off the platform. Let go! Qin Wenyin spoke to Sixth Knight. His eyes were filled with a domineering aura, causing Sixth Knight to feel as though he was about to submit. Scram! Sixth Knight howled in rage. Although Qin Wenyin did his best to resist, he was still pushed to the edge of the platform by Sixth Knight. Many in the crowd watched on nervously. Could it be that Qin Wenyin would be eliminated in the first battle of the 2nd round? Courting death. Qin Wenyin roared in rage, causing the crowd to be bewildered. They couldn't understand why Qin Wenyin would still be able to spit out such arrogant words. At this moment, the divine energy within Qin Wentian's body was madly converging, condensing into divine inscriptions of the 1st level. Currently, Qin Wenyin was able to condense this type of divine inscription within a short period of time. The sword-shaped divine inscriptions converged, transforming into a terrifyingly sharp sword in Qin Wentian's arterial circulation. But at this moment, the spectators didn't know that Sixth Knight was determined to smash Qin Wenyin off the platform. Qin Wenyin opened his mouth, and in that instant, a resplendent beam of sword light shot out from his mouth, incomparably sharp. Arg! A scream of agony rang out. Sixth Knight's movements instantly halted. The sharp sword that Qin Wenyin had spat out from his mouth had already broken through the protective barrier of his demonic qi and directly pierced through one of his eyes. Sixth Knight's aura instantly exploded outwards, and the sword light condensed from the divine energy also disappeared. However, the damage done to Sixth Knight had already been determined. Scram! Qin Wenyin, who had already reached the edge of the platform, grabbed hold of Mad Bull's body and directly threw him off the platform. This sudden reversal caused the spectators to be dumbfounded. The gazes they used to look at Qin Wenyin grew increasingly strange. Spitting out a sharp sword from his mouth, this fellow actually had such an ability. This was truly unexpected. Orkan's countenance changed slightly. He had personally witnessed Qin Wenyin spitting out palm imprints. But now, it seemed as though he was even more proficient in this technique, directly spitting out a sharp sword from his mouth, making it impossible for his opponent to defend against it. In fact, it was the same as when he defeated Jiang Xiu in the first battle. Qin Wenyin wasn't proficient in swordsmanship, so where did his swords come from? In the spectator stands, in the direction of the Mo clan, beside Mo Qingqing, the eyes of her father flickered with sharpness as he spoke in a low voice. This brat's arterial circulation is extremely smooth, but how did he manage to spit out a sharp sword from his mouth? Not only him, the Yuanfu cultivators from the Emperor Star Academy, as well as the various transcendent powers, were all extremely curious. How did Qin Wenyan accomplish this? This kind of ability was extremely rare, and they had never heard of any Yuanfu cultivators possessing it before. Could it be that Qin Wenyan had comprehended it himself? If that was the case, his comprehension ability had to be re-evaluated. Compared to the fact that Sixth Knight was blinded, they were more concerned about how Qin Wenyan had accomplished this. It wasn't that these people were cold-blooded and emotionless, it was just that in the world of cultivation, the majority of them were already used to death or heavy injuries. On the stage of the Junlin banquet, there would always be geniuses falling, and heavy injuries were extremely common. However, those from Snow Cloud didn't think so. Not only was Sixth Knight defeated, his eyes were also blinded. This indicated that he had lost the ability to challenge others. The battle against Qin Wenyan at the Junlin banquet would be his final battle. Forget about the challenge, bring him back to the royal palace to recuperate. Chu Tianjiao calmly spoke. A few silhouettes stepped out, carrying the heavily injured Sixth Knight away as they mounted demonic beasts and soared into the skies. After Sixth Knight's defeat, the spectators had to re-evaluate Qin Wenyan's strength. To be able to spit out a sharp sword from his mouth, it was absolutely impossible for one to engage in close combat with Qin Wenyan. If not, if they were to be suppressed during combat, would they still be able to defend against a sword attack from his mouth? The ending of Sixth Knight was the best proof of this. Out of the 18 participants, only 17 remained. Seems like Qin Wenyan's chances of entering the top 9 has increased. Many people were thinking in their hearts, regretting that they didn't bet on Qin Wenyan entering the top 9 at the Drunken Wonder Inn. Right now, the payout rate of Drunken Wonder Inn had been adjusted. If they were to bet now, they would have to follow the new payout rate. At this moment, Fatty Fan Lu was extremely agitated. He had bet everything he had. If Qin Wenyan was able to charge into the top 9, no, top 3, that would be too wonderful. Sikong Mingyue turned and stared at Qin Wenyan, as a sharp glint of light flickered in his eyes. In the first round, the victor and loser have yet to be determined. In that case, let's continue with the unfinished battles. This time around, before Sikong Mingyue could even open his mouth, Qin Wenyan had already spoken. After which, he brandished his ancient halberd as he advanced towards the direction of Seventh Knight. The ancient halberd was dragged along the ground, causing an ear-piercing screech to echo out. The aura radiating from Qin Wenyan continued to rise unceasingly. At this moment, Qin Wenyan gave off a feeling of arrogance and unruliness. As long as he unsheathed his halberd, who could contend against him? This kind of aura seemed to have been engraved into his bones. Inadvertently, when he released his aura, he was akin to a supreme expert. He stood there leisurely, looking down at the world with disdain. At this moment, Seventh Knight felt a terrifying pressure gushing towards her. Chapter 126. Seventh Knight's beautiful eyes flickered as she sensed Qin Wenyan's aura. After which, she smiled at Qin Wenyan. "Wenyan Gij, do you really have the heart to do this to me?" At this moment, the pitiful look on Seventh Knight's face made Qin Wenyan feel as though the person he was facing wasn't Seventh Knight. Wenyan Gij, only that last Bai Qin would address him in this manner. Ever since the Bai clan moved to the royal capital, Qin Wenyan had never seen Bai Qin again. Now that a year had passed, he wondered how she was doing. At this moment, a surge of coldness suddenly appeared. Qin Wenyan's countenance flashed like lightning. This was an illusion. Seventh Knight possessed the ability to create illusions. His will once again became resolute, his heart as hard as steel, and his gaze as sharp as a spear. An indomitable aura once again appeared as he advanced forward. Seventh Knight's soul-stirring eyes were still fixated on Qin Wenyan. However, she also felt that her own eyes were about to sink into the illusion. The illusion in the depths of Qin Wenyan's eyes was like a dream, causing her to be unable to extricate herself. Qin Wenyan similarly unleashed his innate talent through his eyes. Bzzz. The ancient halberd exploded outwards. Qin Wenyan's body soared through the air as he descended from the skies, akin to a ferocious tiger rushing down from the mountains. incomparably tyrannical. When engaged, you are so ruthless. Seventh Night spoke in a meek voice, yet her words were unable to shake Qin Wentian's heart. The ancient halberd instantly descended. Seventh Night had finally started her counterattack. Frost froze the ancient halberd as numerous ice spears pierced out in rage. Although the ice spears were all shattered, the number of ice spears was simply too many. Qin Wentian's ancient halberd danced about continuously. The azure dragon roared, the white tiger roared, and the vermilion bird swept through the air, shattering all the ice spears in his way. Qin Wentian's attacks continued on his way towards Seventh Night. Seventh Night took a few steps back, but Qin Wentian didn't even give her the chance to breathe. Sixth Night's berserk strength was her strength, while Seventh Night's agility was her control and illusion abilities. In that case, he would use his strength to suppress her. Seventh Night released her astral soul, only to see a gigantic coiling ice python appearing. Its eyes were fixed on Qin Wentian, causing him to feel a sense of demonic terror. At the same time, the seventh palm shook, and a giant frost python rushed out, colliding with his ancient halberd. Wentian Gidge! Seventh Night shouted again. Abruptly, a terrifying astral light radiated from her body. Her body rotated slightly as a pair of golden wings appeared on her back. They were like rows of golden blades slicing towards Qin Wentian. At this moment, they were as fast as lightning, and when they exploded out, it was impossible for anyone to dodge. That's only her second astral soul. Her first astral soul was an ice-attributed python astral soul, and it was bestowed with the power of illusion. The pupils of the spectators narrowed. They had all been deceived by Seventh Night, thinking that her power of illusion was also a type of astral soul. So it turned out that it was a talent bestowed upon her by her ice-attributed python astral soul. Her second astral soul was a pair of wings, incomparably resplendent. When it swept out, it was as sharp as a blade, wanting to sever Qin Wentian's body into two. Qin Wentian's right hand that was holding onto the halberd was frozen by his opponent, while Seventh Night's wings slashed towards his right from an extremely crafty angle. Qin Wentian's hand that was holding onto the halberd relaxed in an instant, as he slammed out with his palm towards the golden rays of light. The rumbling sounds of his palm imprints were akin to a terrifying torrent, while at the same time he spat out a beam of razor-sharp sword light. This battle caused the spectators to be dazzled. It was too fascinating. Regardless of whether it was Qin Wentian or Seventh Night, both of their attacks were impossible to defend against. Seventh Night's body abruptly spun around at a rapid speed, and in that instant, the entire sky was filled with golden astral light. The resplendent wings were as beautiful as the wings of a phoenix. Seventh Night's graceful figure danced gracefully in the air, and as she spun around, the sword light that landed on her body was instantly destroyed. Only Qin Wentian could feel how dangerous Seventh Night was at this moment. Her wings were akin to millions of sharp swords slashing towards him, slicing through the air. If he was struck by them, he would die without a doubt. Seventh Night's strength isn't any weaker than Sixth Night's. The spectators exclaimed in admiration. As expected of a battle of the Junlin banquet, it was indeed fascinating. Rumble! Within Qin Wentian's arterial pathways, terrifying rumbling sounds rang out. The divine energy condensed from the second-level divine imprint of the mountain. Divine imprint howled as it flowed through his arterial pathways and into Qin Wentian's palms. Qin Wentian retreated a few steps, before ruthlessly stomping his foot on the ground, causing the entire platform to tremble. After which, Qin Wentian blasted out with his palm. It was still the falling mountain palms, but this palm didn't seem to be a palm, but rather a mountain peak pressing downwards. The spectators felt that Seventh Night was extremely tiny and insignificant. Seventh Night's sharpness was too sharp. Since that was the case, he would use force to break it. Boom! It was as though a mountain peak had smashed into Seventh Night's body. Her dancing silhouette instantly halted, as though her internal organs were shaken by the force of Qin Wentian's palm strike. Get down! Qin Wentian continued forward, slamming his palm onto Seventh Night's body. In an instant, Seventh Night's body was flung through the air, directly landing below the platform as she staggered backwards. Her face reddened, and finally, she couldn't endure it any longer as she coughed out a mouthful of blood. After which, she sat down cross-legged as her countenance gradually turned pale. Although her attack earlier was terrifying, her defense wasn't that strong. Qin Wentian's falling mountain palms, which were formed from the divine energy of the mountain divine inscriptions, were extremely ferocious. How could she not be heavily injured? Picking up the ancient halberd, Qin Wentian stood there. His gaze wasn't on Seventh Night, but on the various towering platforms. A gentle breeze ruffled his robes, as his long hair danced in the wind. His gaze landed on Sikong Mingyue, as though he was silently declaring to him that it wouldn't be so easy for him to get down from the platform. For the next 2 battles, Qin Wentian appeared. In the first battle, he lost to Sixth Night. In the second battle, he lost to Seventh Night. Are there any more challenges? The old man beside Chu Tianjiao asked Seventh Night. Seventh Night opened her eyes as she replied, "Please give me some time, let the others fight first." "Fine, I'll wait for your next battle." The old man nodded his head. Those who lost all had a chance to fight again. Since Seventh Night was injured and didn't want to give up, he would give her a chance. On the 9th towering platform, only Qin Wentian remained. He sat cross-legged and took out a Yuan meteor stone. Releasing his astral soul, he began to absorb the astral energy within the Yuan meteor stone, before using his astral soul to temper it. He needed the purest form of astral energy. The Yuan meteor stone in his hand was only a meteorite from the 2nd heavenly layer. Only by tempering it with his astral soul would it be able to absorb the astral energy he needed. Seems like that mountain-like palm imprint caused Qin Wentian to expend quite a bit of astral energy. The spectators mused. Qin Wentian took the opportunity to rest to replenish his astral energy. The amount of astral energy that Wu Xiu's body could store was limited. The higher one's cultivation base, the larger the vessel the human body was, and the more astral energy it could store. And the stronger an innate technique was, the more astral energy it would consume. Hence, if one could use a simple innate technique to defeat their opponent, no one would be willing to waste too much astral energy to use their strongest attack. Our Snow Cloud country's Qi has actually been defeated twice in a row. Sikong Mingyue calmly stated. The faces of those from Snow Cloud couldn't even be seen. Currently, only 5 of them remained on the platform. They were Sikong Mingyue, 2nd Sword, 3rd Sword, 3rd Night and 4th Night. The countenances of these people were solemn. Their gazes once again shifted onto the 9th towering platform. Does the Snow Cloud country think they can bully my Chu country? Luo Huan laughed lightly as she slowly walked towards 4th Night. Since 7th Night only had a single battle to rest, she would help Qin Wentian to settle this. 4th Night's countenance was extremely heavy as he stared at Luo Huan. During the first round he had seen Luo Huan's combat prowess. The flexibility and toughness of this woman's body was terrifying. A long whip appeared in her hands as Luo Huan advanced towards 4th Night. Abruptly, her long whip danced in the air, transforming into a myriad of whip shadows that filled the skies, akin to millions of sharp swords shooting towards 4th Night. 4th Night stepped out. His palms trembled as a ball of azure light appeared around him, enveloping him within. At the same time, he withstood the attacks of the millions of whip shadows as he dashed towards Luo Huan. This defense. The spectators had expressions of astonishment on their faces. Maybe Luo Huan's attacks were somewhat lacking? Luo Huan similarly dashed towards 4th Night, and the two of them instantly clashed. 4th Night's arm transformed into a saber light as he slashed out. Luo Huan's body twisted, barely dodging the attack. At the same time, her other hand actually landed on 4th Night's shoulder. Boom! 4th Night punched out, as a terrifying fist light directly landed on Luo Huan's body. However, it was as though he had punched nothing but air. Luo Huan's body bent over, resembling a willow tree branch. After which, with a ferocious leap, she coiled around 4th Night's body. Scram! 4th Night's entire body erupted with a terrifying saber intent as he released his astral soul, incomparably violent. Luo Huan's body spun madly, and in an instant, It was unknown how many times she spun. Her speed was even faster than Seventh Knight's, and in an instant, the spectators discovered that Fourth Knight's body seemed to have been buried by the vines. The speed at which the saber light sliced through the air was actually slower than the speed at which she spun. Mustang, who was standing on the platform, laughed lightly. Luo Huan's performance didn't surprise him at all. In truth, only a few people knew how powerful Luo Huan's talent was. Usually, she would always smile and smile, but in crucial moments, she would always be able to erupt forth with an astonishing amount of power. Fourth Knight's entire body seemed to be engulfed by the vines. The saber light gradually grew weaker, and only when the spectators could no longer sense it did Luo Huan finally stop spinning. Her sexy legs were still clamped around Fourth Knight's head, as the countless vines and willow branches completely buried Fourth Knight's body. Yet another dark horse. Many people exclaimed in admiration. Luo Huan had actually used her astral soul, which many people didn't think highly of, to unleash such an astonishing amount of power. The combination of the Weeping Willow Astral Soul and the Long Vine Astral Soul was actually able to unleash such a terrifying power. Naturally, this wasn't just a simple fusion of astral souls. Luo Huan's strength was also the reason why she could perfectly fuse them together. "My sister, why didn't you say so earlier?" Fan Le had a bitter expression on his face. He had forgotten to bet on his senior sister Luo Huan. Chapter 127. On the platform, Luo Huan was still tightly controlling Fourth Knight. The spectators could see that Luo Huan had no intentions of letting go. Staring at her beautiful countenance, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Was she trying to take Fourth Knight's life? For such a long time, Fourth Knight was probably suffering from suffocating pain. He has already been defeated, why don't you release him? Sikong Mingyue stared at Luo Huan as he coldly spoke. I didn't hear him concede. Luo Huan laughed. If I let him go, he might attack me again. The cold light in Sikong Mingyue's eyes intensified. However, it was true that Luo Huan didn't break the rules. Not only did she control Fourth Knight, she didn't even give him a chance to speak. It wasn't that Fourth Knight wasn't strong, it was just that Luo Huan's combat style was too bizarre. The combination of her two astral souls allowed her to possess a body that could be described as perfect and resilient. It was like the whip in her hands, able to twist and turn as she pleased. Fourth Knight didn't even have the chance to display his combat power, but he had already fallen into such a desperate situation. It's best to leave some leeway in life, Sikong Mingyue calmly said. Just now, when you were preparing to take turns to fight my junior brother, you didn't seem to have thought of this. Luo Huan continued giggling. Evidently, she couldn't bear to see those from Snow Cloud repeatedly acting against Qin Wenyin. Hence, she decided to retaliate against the Emperor's Star Academy. Sikong Mingyue was speechless. However, a terrifying killing intent gushed forth from him. Staring at Fourth Knight who was beneath Luo Huan, he coldly stated, I will avenge you. I'm not that cruel. Luo Huan laughed. After which, her body slid down the platform as she kicked Fourth Knight off the platform. After Fourth Knight was freed, he took a deep breath and fainted. It was obvious that he no longer had the ability to return to the stage. These people are truly ruthless, not even giving the opponent a chance to turn the tables. The crowd silently speculated. Qin Wenyin was like this, and so was Luo Huan. Fourth Knight had lost the right to return to the stage, but Seventh Knight still had a chance. Her face was still pale, evidently not enough time to recover from her injuries. Forget it, have a good rest. Sikong Mingyue said to Seventh Knight. Seventh Knight reluctantly nodded her head and gave up the opportunity to return to challenge. At this moment, the fourth, sixth, and seventh Knights were all eliminated. Out of the 18 participants, only 15 remained. As for Snow Cloud, there were only 4 participants remaining. Such an ending wasn't something the Snow Cloud country wanted to see. They had traveled thousands of miles to come to Chu, and even joined forces with Chu to host the Junlin banquet. If their results were too bad, wouldn't they lose all face when they returned to Snow Cloud? Everyone, choose your own opponent. Sikong Mingyue calmly said. In an instant, several figures on the stage moved. The second sword arrived in front of Shijun. The third knight walked towards Kuang Sheng. As for the third sword, he wanted to move towards Qin Wenyan. However, just as he was about to reach Qin Wenyan, a silhouette blocked his path. That silhouette was none other than a silent young man, Gu Xing. From the start to the end, this young man hadn't spoken a single word. He was silent, quiet, and just like his name, he was like a lonely star. However, in the first round he had defeated Fifth Knight. Nobody dared to underestimate him. At this moment, Gu Xing stood in front of Third Sword. It was unknown if he was intentionally blocking for Qin Wenyan, or if he was just casually doing it. But no matter what his purpose was, at least this time around, the spectators would be able to witness an exciting battle. Sikong Mingyue initially wanted to move, but at this moment, he halted as he stared at the three opponents. The Snow Cloud country can't wait any longer. The spectators silently mused. The sword chi from second sword gushed forth as a terrifying tempest enveloped his entire body. With a flick of his finger, countless beams of sword light shot towards the eighth prodigy. Shijun's body was like a boulder as he punched out with his fist. But in an instant, the boulder was shattered by the sharp sword, causing him to retreat a step. The sword chi from second sword was exceedingly sharp. He had exchanged blows with Jiang Xiu before, and Jiang Xiu's sword intent was far inferior to second sword's. If Jiang Xiu's sword intent was akin to the autumn rain of swords, then second sword's sword intent would be akin to the tempest of swords. At the same time, Third Knight also started to make his move against Kuang Sheng, ranked number 9 of the 10 prodigies. Third Knight had some similarities with Sixth Knight. They were both proficient in offense and strength. Brandishing his gigantic axe, he directly slashed towards Kuang Sheng. Kuang Sheng was proficient in saber techniques, and he used his tyrannical saber techniques to clash against Third Knight. However, every time they clashed, the spectators would discover that Kuang Sheng's saber techniques would slow down and he would be forced to retreat. Evidently, he was at a disadvantage in terms of strength. Third Knight was using brute force to break through. Although his axe techniques seem clumsy, they are actually extremely exquisite. Kuang Sheng's saber techniques are being suppressed to the point of death. Shijun and Kuang Sheng are both going to be defeated soon. The spectators mused. This time around, the rankings of the top 5 prodigies would all change. Orkan, Luo Huan, Qin Wenyan, and even Luo Cheng would all be ranked within the top 10 prodigies. There would always be geniuses in every generation. If one didn't advance, they would have to retreat. This was reality. Third Sword also released his sword-type astral soul at this moment, as the sword intent radiating from him started to rise. However, Gu Xing still stood there, as though he was eternally alone. There were no fluctuations in his eyes, and only when he stared at his opponent would a terrifying cold light erupt forth. This kind of cold light caused the spectators to feel traces of coldness. The sword light was like a shadow. The third sword stabbed out. This was a sword art divine ability that had no flaws. It was as if under his sword light, no other light could exist. All the brilliance belonged to his sword. Puchi! A light sound rang out, causing the spectators to be stunned. Third Sword was stunned as well. His sword had pierced through Gu Xing's left arm. He wanted to seal off Gu Xing's path of retreat, but Gu Xing didn't retreat at all, nor did he evade. He allowed the sword to easily pierce through his body. Third Sword's combat experience was extremely plentiful. However, he had never seen such a situation before. Hence, he was stunned for a moment. At the same time, Gu Xing's hand grabbed hold of the sword that had pierced through his body. His eyes stared straight at Third Sword, and in an instant, Third Sword only felt a piercing pain in his eyes. After which, a palm imprint directly slammed into his head. With a thunderous boom, Third Sword's body was flung through the air, landing below the platform as he screamed in agony. His face was now a bloody mess. This bizarre battle caused the spectators to be dumbfounded as they fell into a daze. The sword in Gu Xing's left arm had already disappeared. Without the support of astral energy, how could his astral soul take the form of a sword? Gu Xing returned to his original position and sat down cross-legged. There wasn't much blood flowing out from his left arm, and the wound seemed to be healing. What a terrifying recovery ability! What astral soul does he have? The hearts of the spectators trembled as they engraved this lonely silhouette into their minds. His name was Gu Xing, the lonely constellation of stars. At this moment, he had regained his calm. Nobody knew what he was thinking in his heart. Actually, when he defeated Fifth Knight in the first round, many of the major powers in the royal capital had already started to investigate Gu Xing. However, they discovered that it was as though Gu Xing didn't exist in Chu at all. No matter how powerful their intelligence network was, they couldn't find any clues at all. Gu Xing had appeared in the royal capital before the Jun Lin banquet, but he didn't do anything until he appeared on the platform and defeated Fifth Knight. And now, he had defeated Third Sword. Other than Third Sword being defeated, the other two participants from Snow Cloud had already defeated their respective opponents. Shi Jun and Kuang Xing were both defeated, but they still had the ability to challenge their opponents. As for Third Sword, he already had no way of challenging his opponent. Shi Jun and Kuang Xing once again challenged their opponents, while the others quietly sat there. Shi Jun walked towards Chu Chen, who was also from the Royal Academy. Kuang Xing seemed to be waiting. When he personally witnessed the little Prince Chu Chen defeating Shi Jun, his heart turned even colder. As for the remaining participants, none of them were characters that could be trifled with. Luo Qianxiu, Sikong Mingyue, Second Sword, and Third Knight naturally didn't need to be mentioned. Orkun, Luo Huan, and Gu Xing were all extremely terrifying as well. Ho Tai from the godly General Martial Palace was extremely powerful, and Leng Ye was also a ruthless character. Kuang Xing couldn't figure out Leng Ye's background at all. Lastly, there were the two strongest arterial circulation cultivators from the Divine Wind Academy, the sixth prodigy, Jiang Feng and Qin Wenyan. It was simply too difficult to advance to the next round. Even if he won another round, he would still be eliminated in the next round. Finally, Kuang Xing steeled his heart and walked towards Qin Wenyan. After all, he had seen a few of Qin Wentian's battles. Although Qin Wenyan was powerful, he still had a clear understanding of Qin Wentian's background. Not only that, Qin Wenyan had expended a large amount of astral energy and was currently busy with his cultivation. When Kuang Xing appeared in front of Qin Wenyan opened his eyes. Staring at Kuang Xing, he slowly stood up. In the end, it's because I'm too kind. Qin Wenyan murmured. He no longer wielded the ancient halberd in his hands. The 7 arterial pathways in his body surged and rumbled, so loud that the spectators could almost hear the sound of it. This scene caused Kuang Xing's countenance to stiffen as his countenance grew even heavier. An illusory pair of Garuda wings appeared behind Qin Wentian's back. In the next instant, his silhouette disappeared from his original location as the forgotten imprint blasted out. Kuang Xing lifted his saber, as the saber light flashed, shattering the palm imprint. However, Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he instantly disappeared, reappearing at the side of Kuang Xing as he sent out yet another palm strike. Kuang Xing pushed his footwork to the limits, following closely behind Qin Wentian's attack. An instant later, the spectators only saw the silhouette of Qin Wentian, as before, filling the skies with palm imprints. Kuang Xing's saber danced about in an impenetrable manner, as a terrifying saber tempest manifested. However, the spectators could tell that if this continued, Kuang Xing would be defeated sooner or later. And indeed, not long after, Kuang Xing's saber started to become chaotic, only to see Qin Wenyan chopping out with his palm, as Kuang Xing slashed out with his saber once more. But at the same time, Qin Wenyan spat out a sharp sword, causing Kuang Xing's countenance to drastically change. Boom! A terrifying palm imprint slammed into Kuang Xing's body, causing him to be flung through the air, landing outside of the platform. After which, he slammed heavily onto the ground as he unceasingly coughed out mouthful after mouthful of blood. It was as though all the meridians in his body had been destroyed. At this moment, Qin Wenyan slowly lowered his leg. How could he stop at that? He could only spit out sword light from his mouth. Who said that his leg couldn't be blasted out with palm techniques? At this moment, out of the original 18 contestants, only 12 were left. Only 3 more would be eliminated, and the top 9 would be revealed. However, the hearts of the spectators grew even more nervous. This was especially so for those who had placed their bets. Their hearts were pounding wildly. Chapter 128. At this moment, those who remained on the 9 towering platforms were Snowcloud Country's Sikong Mingyue, Second Sword, Third Knight; Chu Country's Luo Qianxiu, Qin Wendian, Gu Xing, Luo Huan, Orkan, Ho Tai, Leng Ya, Chu Chen, and Jiang Feng. Following that, 3 out of the 12 would have to be eliminated. However, the remaining ones were all extremely difficult to deal with. None of them would be easy to eliminate. Sikong Mingyue and Luo Qianxiu couldn't be touched. The Second Sword and Third Knight were the strongest existences in Snowcloud other than Sikong Mingyue. As for Orkan, Heaven's Wonder had high hopes for him during the June Lin banquet this year. Not only that, he had displayed his talent in the Astral River Hall of the Emperor's Star Academy. Gu Xing was a madman. No one dared to provoke someone who did not care about his life. Luo Huan's perfect fusion of astral souls was unshakable. Qin Wendian was getting stronger and stronger. Ho Tai and Leng Ya, these 2 people from the godly General Martial Palace, gave off a mysterious and powerful feeling. Jiang Feng, the strongest cultivator below Yuanfu in the Divine Wind Academy. He was ranked number 6 among the 10 prodigies of the royal capital. This also meant that out of the 5 prodigies participating in the June Lin banquet this year, his ranking was the highest. In the past, Prince Chu Chen had never revealed his true strength. However, he had defeated Shi Jun of the 10 prodigies. Furthermore, he did not seem to have exhausted too much of his energy. It was likely that he had not even revealed his trump cards yet. If possible, the crowd didn't want any of the remaining 12 people to be eliminated. Sadly, the June Lin banquet only required a total of 9 names. It was destined that 3 of them would have to leave the 9 towering platforms. At this moment, Sikong Mingyue's gaze shifted over, landing on Luo Huan. Earlier, Luo Huan had dealt with Fourth Knight in front of him. Not only that, Fourth Knight's consequences were extremely miserable. Now, Luo Huan would have to pay the price. Buzz! A raging wind gusted by, as Sikong Mingyue gently walked forward. However, with every step he took, there seemed to be a formless gust of wind in the air, fluttering his long hair. A terrifying killing intent erupted from Sikong Mingyue's body, as though it was about to transform into a corporeal killing intent, instantly enveloping all 9 towering platforms within it. Qin Wentian's eyes narrowed. The killing intent radiating from Sikong Mingyue's body was extremely terrifying. It was as though anyone who dared to obstruct his path would be completely annihilated. And at this moment, Sikong Mingyue was targeting senior sister Luo Huan. Senior sister, if you can't do it, just admit defeat. Qin Wendian called out to Luo Huan. Luo Huan nodded her head lightly as her countenance turned heavy. The pressure Sikong Mingyue gave her was extremely strong. Sikong Mingyue has finally made his move. The gazes of the crowd were all focused on him, as though the moment he made his move, he would attract everyone's attention. Sikong Mingyue's strength is so tyrannical, yet Heaven's Wonder still views him as the second strongest contender for the position of the champion. Although Heaven's Wonder is already extremely optimistic about him, it's still not as optimistic as it is about Luo Qianxiu. I wonder how strong Luo Qianxiu is exactly, and why Heaven's Wonder regards him so highly. The hearts of the spectators were speculating. Luo Qianxiu wasn't even one of the 10 prodigies last year. Could it be that in just a year's time, he had already made a comeback, directly ascending to the top of the June Lin banquet, overlooking the entire world? Actually, with Heaven's Wonder's terrifying intelligence network, since they wanted to set the payout rates, they naturally had to have a good grasp of everyone's situation. They were very clear about Luo Qianxiu's background, as well as the mission Luo Qianxiu had to carry. Hence, for this year's June Lin banquet, Luo Qianxiu had to obtain the position of champion. Because he needed to step into the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion. Hence, Luo Qianxiu couldn't be defeated. At this moment, Qin Wendian felt an immense pressure. With his current combat prowess, He still didn't have the confidence to win against Luo Qianqiu and Xikong Mingyue. He wanted to fight, and he would do his best to fight. A year was too long, he had to seize every minute. However, this wasn't enough just because he had faith. He had to think of a way to defeat both Xikong Mingyue and Luo Qianqiu. On the platform of the final battle, both of them would be blocking his path. Only by surpassing them would he be able to ascend to the top. Xikong Mingyue arrived in front of Luo Huan. His footsteps didn't stop as he advanced towards Luo Huan. At this moment, Luo Huan released both of her astral souls. Even if she couldn't defeat her opponent, she still wanted to see how strong Xikong Mingyue was exactly. She wanted to know more about Xikong Mingyue's background and what were his trump cards. Only to see Xikong Mingyue directly pointing his finger at Luo Huan. In an instant, a majestic killing intent gushed forth, transforming into the word, slaughter, imprinting itself onto Luo Huan with a speed as fast as lightning. Luo Huan's countenance changed. The flexibility of her body was incomparably tyrannical, yet Xikong Mingyue was using a long-range attack to deal with her. Not only that, the might of this attack was extremely terrifying. If the word, slaughter, were to land on her body, it would definitely be able to penetrate through her body. A long whip appeared in her hands as she unleashed a storm of wind and rain, slamming into the ancient word, slaughter. Luo Huan's attack was instantly disintegrated, but the ancient word, slaughter, continued advancing, its momentum not yet dissipating. Die! Xikong Mingyue stepped forward. He didn't even need to engage in close combat with Luo Huan. Once again, he jabbed out with his finger, and in an instant, the ancient word, slaughter, transformed into a terrifying torrent of slaughter, crazily gushing towards Luo Huan. Luo Huan's body retreated unceasingly. It was extremely difficult for her to defend. Soon, she was already at the edge of the platform, and her defeat was already inevitable. Under Xikong Mingyue's suppression, even with Luo Huan's tyrannical strength, she actually had no way to resist at all. From this, one can see that even though they are at the same cultivation level, the disparity between them can be so great. Xikong Mingyue's attacks most probably contain the power of his astral souls, and in addition to that, his innate technique, grand momentum, and a terrifying slaughter chi were all fused into one. Some of the experts in the crowd silently mused. Xikong Mingyue was too powerful. He seemed to be on a completely different level compared to the others. No wonder Heaven's Wonder ranked him as the second strongest contender for the position of the top ranker. One of the duo prides of Snowcloud, his reputation was well-deserved. Seeing that Luo Huan had yet to be defeated, an intense killing intent flashed in Xikong Mingyue's eyes. With a step, his entire person vanished from sight, together with the torrent of slaughter, rushing towards Luo Huan. Upon seeing this scene, many in the crowd couldn't help but feel nervous. Countless vines abruptly appeared, wanting to wrap around Xikong Mingyue. However, Xikong Mingyue only lightly blasted out a palm strike. The palm strike transformed into formless runes, causing the void to tremble. Puchi! Luo Huan directly coughed out a mouthful of blood as her countenance paled. It was as though she had just been struck by a terrifying killing intent. She leapt backwards, wanting to leave the platform as she shouted, "I admit defeat." Even before the sound of the word defeat faded, Xikong Mingyue had already blasted out with both his palms, causing Luo Huan's countenance to turn even paler. Her astral souls allowed her body to possess perfect toughness, as well as a tyrannical suppressive force. Against close-range attacks, she was able to skillfully evade them. However, in terms of pure offense and defense, Luo Huan was still considered weak. At this moment, the terrifying torrent of slaughter gushed towards her, wanting to take her life. Luo Huan's silhouette abruptly spun, transforming into a hurricane that enveloped her within. Rumbling sounds rang out as Luo Huan's body was flung through the air. After which, she slammed heavily into the ground. When her lithe and graceful body appeared on the ground, her countenance was already deathly pale as she coughed out large mouthfuls of fresh blood. That haggard countenance of hers truly caused people to feel pity for her. Senior sister. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened as he stood at the edge of the platform, gazing down at Luo Huan. At the same time, a few silhouettes flickered as they descended from the spectator stands. One of them was Mustang from the Emperor Star Academy, while the other was actually Mo Qingqing. I have some medicinal pills here. Mo Qingqing retrieved a medicinal pill and fed it to Luo Huan. The moment the pill entered her mouth, Luo Huan felt her entire body cooling down. The medicinal pill seemed to be nourishing her injuries, as though a stream of water was flowing through her body, causing her injuries to slowly recover. At the same time, her blood, qi, and spirit were also recovering. Is senior sister all right? Qin Wenyan asked Mustang, who was standing beside Luo Huan. The medicinal pill Miss Qingqing gave her is a second-level high-grade medicinal pill. It should be sufficient to suppress her injuries. Mustang glanced at Mo Qingqing. Qin Wenyan heaved a sigh of relief as he smiled at Mo Qingqing. Don't worry, back then outside the Sky Harmony City, you've also consumed it. Mo Qingqing smiled as she walked away, causing Qin Wenyan to be stunned. So it turned out that back then when he was unconscious, Mo Qingqing had given him such a precious medicinal pill in order to save him. I still need to return to the arena and request for some time to rest. Luo Huan stared in the direction of the Chu Emperor District as she spoke to the old man beside Chu Tianjiao. Sure, I'll give you some time to rest. The old man spoke as Luo Huan closed her eyes and began to meditate. Qin Wenyan shifted his gaze over as a cold light flickered in his eyes as he stared at Sikong Mingyue. Time for one battle? Sikong Mingyue stared at Qin Wenyan as a cold killing intent flashed in his eyes. However, at this moment, a silhouette appeared in front of Sikong Mingyue, blocking his view of Qin Wenyan. There was actually someone who took the initiative to provoke Sikong Mingyue. This person was none other than Gu Xing. This caused an expression of bewilderment to appear on Qin Wentian's face. Why did he feel that Gu Xing was intentionally helping him? Seems like Qin Wenyan is undefeatable, the crowd mused. Now, only 3 more participants were left to be eliminated, and the top 9 rankings would be determined. Luo Huan had to return to the arena to fight against another participant, and the loser would have to be eliminated. If Gu Xing was defeated by Sikong Mingyue, he would have to return to the arena as well, and after that, there would be another elimination slot. If that was the case, there would only be 1 slot left. Even if Luo Qianqiu or Orkan wanted to deal with Qin Wenyan would still have a chance to return to the arena, and his chances of entering the top 9 were extremely high. However, at this moment, the crowd only saw Qin Wenyan lifting his feet, shuttling back and forth between the platforms. Finally, his silhouette stood in front of Third Knight. This battle wasn't for himself, but for Luo Huan. Chapter 129. Sikong Mingyue's strength was obviously much stronger compared to Luo Huan's. Earlier, he must have seen Luo Huan preparing to retreat from the battlefield and shout out the word, concede. However, before the word, concede, could be uttered, Sikong Mingyue had already unleashed a sure-kill attack. This was no longer as simple as defeating Luo Huan. In fact, it wasn't as simple as injuring Luo Huan. He wanted to kill her. On the platform of the Jun Lin banquet, death and injury were unavoidable. However, if there wasn't a deep grudge between them, they would usually stop when the time was right. Earlier, when Luo Huan defeated Fourth Knight, although she made Fourth Knight suffer and lost his combat prowess, she still showed mercy and spared Fourth Knight. When he fought against Sixth Knight, he had no choice but to spit out sword light to injure his opponent's eyes. However, he had also shown mercy and didn't want to take his opponent's life. If Sikong Mingyue wanted revenge, he could have directly attacked him. Maybe he wouldn't have been so angry. However, Sikong Mingyue's thoughts weren't so simple. He wanted to kill Luo Huan first, before killing him, Qin Wenyan. Since this was the case, why would he fear a battle of life and death? The ancient halberd scraped against the ground, emitting an ear-piercing sound that caused the spectators to feel a chill. It was as though Qin Wentian's anger was contained within. His silhouette stood in front of Third Knight. The countenance of the youth was ice-cold, without the slightest hint of sunshine. A gigantic axe appeared in Third Knight's hands. He was proficient in strength attacks and was even stronger than 6th Knight. However, he wouldn't underestimate Qin Wenyan. You can have self-confidence and the conviction to win, but self-confidence doesn't mean arrogance. If you underestimate your opponent, it would give others an opportunity to take advantage of you. Your ancient halberd's attack power isn't strong enough. 3rd Knight spoke to Qin Wenyan. His words were somewhat frivolous, yet his silhouette still gave off a sense of steadiness akin to a mountain. Qin Wenyan didn't reply. His footsteps were as simple as before, giving off a feeling of slowness. 3rd Knight frowned slightly. At this moment, the calm Qin Wenyan gave him a faint sense of danger. It was as if he was facing a silent beast that could wake up at any time. At this moment, the crowd saw that Qin Wenyan's eyes were closed. He was calm and peaceful. At this moment, he seemed to be asleep. However, his footsteps were still moving forward slowly, as if he was imbued with a mysterious intent. Right now, Qin Wenyan stood there, his entire body filled with flaws, yet at the same time he seemed to have no flaws at all. The frown on 3rd Knight's face grew even deeper. Brandishing his great axe horizontally, a terrifying and tyrannical aura gushed forth from his body, gushing towards Qin Wenyan. However, Qin Wenyan's eyes were still closed, as though he couldn't care less about 3rd Knight's aura. Slash! 3rd Knight roared in rage as he slashed out with his great axe towards Qin Wenyan. This strike was a test. He wanted to see how Qin Wenyan was going to attack. At the instant his great axe slashed out, Qin Wenyan opened his eyes. At this instant, the aura of the heavens and earth seemed to have changed. 3rd Knight had a feeling that he was facing an opponent that he couldn't possibly defeat. The Qin Wenyan in front of him had an aura that could conquer the heavens. Buzz! A raging wind gusted by, as Qin Wenyan's silhouette transformed into a series of afterimages. In that instant, his majestic aura was akin to mountains descending from the heavens, completely crushing 3rd Knight's aura. At this moment, Qin Wenyan was like a god of war. 3rd Knight couldn't even muster up the will to resist. Mountain splitter! Qin Wenyan's entire body seemed to have sunk into a dream. This strike of his was akin to a god of war. The first stance of the great dream halberd art, Mountain Splitter. This was also the only stance he had up till now. The spectators only saw a mirage as the ancient halberd slashed towards 3rd Knight with unparalleled might. 3rd Knight's probing strike was directly crushed into pieces, like a piece of paper, easily torn apart. The spectators only saw 3rd Knight raising his great axe with great difficulty, slashing out consecutively. However, the speed of the ancient halberd was too fast, too tyrannical. The spectators only saw a flash of light as the great axe was deflected away. Poochie! A light sound rang out as the ancient halberd pierced right into the center of 3rd Knight's brows. The tip of the halberd, as well as the twin crescent blades, pierced into 3rd Knight's head at the same time. In that instant, it was more than enough to claim his life. 3rd Knight fell. Qin Wenyan, with just a single strike, killed 3rd Knight in an overwhelming manner. This was the most crucial moment in the fight for the top 9 rankings. However, at this very moment, the first person to fall from the top 18 appeared. Not only that, it was 3rd Knight. The duo prides of Snowcloud, the 3rd Sword, and the 7th Knight. Among the 7 knights, the 1st and 2nd Knight weren't included. 3rd Knight was ranked 1st, yet he had died in battle. In an instant, the entire space seemed to have frozen. The gazes of the spectators were all fixated on that tyrannical youth. This strike was too shocking. So it turns out that he had been concealing his strength all this while. Many people sighed in their hearts. In the direction of the Emperor Star Academy, Mustang and the rest had expressions of bewilderment on their faces. Mustang then turned to the spectators and asked, "Does the Emperor Star Academy have such an innate technique?" "I don't think so. At the very least, I've never seen anyone using it before." "Definitely not. I feel that this halberd technique was fused with his own energy. There's a high possibility that it was created by himself." Someone spoke, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble. The might of this halberd technique was already comparable to a low-tier, earth-grade innate technique. Not only that, It was the most perfect strike of an Earth-grade innate technique. Although Qin Wenyin had cultivated a mid-tier Earth-grade innate technique, he was after all only at the 7th level of arterial circulation. It was impossible for him to cultivate it to the point of perfection. However, the halberd strike he executed earlier was comparable to a perfect Earth-grade low-tier innate technique. In fact, if he was stronger, the grade of his innate technique would be even higher. As for those who had seen Qin Wentian's divine inscription painting before, they faintly felt a sense of familiarity from this innate technique. Could it be that the divine innate technique had some sort of connection with the divine innate technique? Qin Wenyan pulled out his ancient halberd as the spectators went up the platform to collect the corpse. At the same time, the battle on the other side also concluded. When Gu Xing saw that Qin Wenyan had killed Third Knight, he immediately left the platform. As such, there were only 9 people left on the platform. Below the platform, there were still Luo Huan and Gu Xing. The two of them still had the qualifications to challenge again. This also meant that in the second round, there were only 2 remaining battles, and Luo Huan and Gu Xing would be the ones to choose. Xikong Mingyue's gaze shifted in the direction of Qin Wenyan as a terrifying killing intent gushed towards Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan similarly stared at him, his countenance calm. After which, the ancient halberd in his hands slowly lifted up. The tip of the halberd was pointed directly at Xikong Mingyue. His meaning was clear even without words. The spectators could feel the 2 auras clashing against each other in the air. Xikong Mingyue's aura was filled with killing intent, while Qin Wentian's aura seemed calm, yet it contained an unwavering determination. Xikong Mingyue was the second most popular candidate for the Jun Lin banquet this time around. Qin Wentian's ancient halberd was pointed directly at his opponent, wanting to contend against Xikong Mingyue in the Jun Lin banquet. What was even more interesting was that both Xikong Mingyue and Qin Wenyan had already secured a spot in the top 9 rankings of the Jun Lin banquet. It was only a matter of time before the 2 of them fought against each other. Would Qin Wenyan be able to shake Xikong Mingyue? Xikong Mingyue was one of the duo prides, and his talent was on par with Xiao LVL. In this Jun Lin banquet, he was the strongest in Snow Cloud. The spectators all felt a surge of heat coursing through their bodies. Although they didn't think highly of Qin Wenyan, they still wanted to see such a battle. This kind of confrontation only added more color to the Jun Lin banquet, causing the spectators to be filled with anticipation. Luo Huan and Gu Xing shouldn't choose to challenge Qin Wenyan. If that's the case, Qin Wenyan has already secured a spot in the top 9 rankings. What a pity that I didn't bet on him. Some people were silently regretting. Before the second round of the Jun Lin banquet, the payout rate for Qin Wenyan to obtain a spot in the top 9 rankings was 1-4. If they had bet on him, they would have earned quite a bit. At this moment, Fatty Fan Lu was already laughing in his heart. He had already obtained the 9th rank. Next, he would have to see if Qin Wenyan could work hard and obtain a spot in the top 3 rankings. If he did so, he, Fan Lu, would definitely become the wealthiest person under the Yuanfu realm. Even those at the Yuanfu realm wouldn't be as wealthy as him. Fan Lu had already started to daydream. Within the crowd, Immortal Drunken Wine and that young man were present as well. However, they were so inconspicuous that no one would notice them. At this moment, the young man laughed. If that's the case, I'll be able to earn at least 100 yuan meteor stones. Later, I'll be able to buy some wine. If that's the case, I won't stand on ceremony. Immortal Drunken Wine also laughed. He was also taken aback. Although he regarded Qin Wenyan highly, he hadn't expected that Qin Wenyan would be able to kill Third Knight with a single strike. Thinking back to the yuan meteor stones he had casually bet on, a strange thought surfaced in his mind. What if he was not careful and won the bet? Wouldn't that mean that he would be able to drink good wine for a very long time? Naturally, the possibility of this happening was too minuscule. The remaining 2 yuan meteor stones he had bet on Qin Wenyan obtaining the top ranking. Chapter 130. At this moment, on the platform, Qin Wenyan, Luo Qianxiu, Xikong Mingyue, Second Sword, Orkan, Ho Tai, Ling Ya, Chu Chen and Jiang Feng, a total of 9 people. Two of them would have to face Luo Huan and Gu Xing, and the victor would advance to the next round, joining the other 7 and becoming one of the top 9 rankers of the Junlin banquet. Among them, there were quite a few who didn't even participate in the second round. They couldn't be bothered to act, and nobody dared to touch them. For example, Luo Qianqiu, Orkan, and Ho Tai. In the second round, they didn't even participate in a single battle. The spectators mostly watched Qin Wentian's battles. Initially, they thought that Qin Wentian would be eliminated very quickly, but he defeated his opponents step by step, causing the spectators to have a whole new level of respect for him. And now, he was already 1 foot into the top 9 rankers. Such an experience caused many to admire him. In the royal capital, the majority of the people knew of Qin Wenin of the Sky Harmony City. He had only joined the Emperor's Star Academy for a year, 1 year less than Luo Qianqiu. Yet, he was able to achieve such an achievement. The two of you, it's time to choose your opponents. The old man beside Chu Tianjiao spoke to Luo Huan and Gu Xing. After Luo Huan finished regulating her qi, she opened her eyes as a beautiful smile blossomed on her face. She stood up and nodded her head in the direction of Mo Qingqing, expressing her gratitude. The second-level high-grade medicinal pill that Mo Qingqing had fed her was extremely effective in healing her injuries. This was especially so for the fact that she had consumed the pill the moment she was injured. The medicinal effect instantly spread throughout her body, healing her injuries and allowing her to fight again within a short period of time. As for Gu Xing, he wasn't injured at all. The spectators had already predicted that Gu Xing would definitely be one of the top 9 rankers. Despite his silence, no one dared to underestimate him. The two of them walked up the platform. Luo Huan's opponent was Jiang Feng, ranked number 6 of the 10 prodigies, while Gu Xing's opponent was Leng Ye from the godly General Martial Palace. This kind of choice did not surprise the crowd. If they had to choose, they would also choose between Jiang Feng, Leng Ye, or Chu Qin. Moreover, Chu Qin, who was born in the imperial family, seemed to be more difficult to predict. Therefore, the two of them had chosen an extremely reasonable opponent. As for the final result of the battle, it caused the spectators to sigh with sorrow. Gu Xing defeated Leng Ye, which was within expectations. However, Luo Huan, who had returned injured, also defeated her opponent, Jiang Feng. Luo Huan's combat prowess was even stronger than Jiang Feng, yet she was easily defeated by Sikong Mingyue. From this, one could see how great the disparity between them was. After the battle between Luo Huan and Jiang Feng, the 10 prodigies of the Junlin banquet were all eliminated. Such a scene could not help but make people sigh. In the world of martial arts, if one did not advance, one would fall back. This was a well-known saying. Originally, there were 10 prodigies in the royal capital. The first 5 had already stepped into Yuanfu, while the latter 5 hadn't. This meant that the latter 5 didn't have much of an improvement. Hence, in this year's Junlin banquet, they were all eliminated. Although part of the reason was that Chu and Snowcloud had jointly organized the Junlin banquet, the decline of the latter 5 was already laid out before everyone's eyes. Luo Qianqiu, Orkan, Qin Wentian, Luo Huan, Ho Tai, and Chu Chen could completely replace them. And now, the last 5 of the 10 prodigies had all been eliminated. After this year's Junlin banquet, not a single one of them would be left. At the same time, the top 9 rankers of this year's Junlin banquet were finally announced. They were Sikong Mingyue, Second Sword, Luo Qianqiu, Orkan, Qin Wenin, Luo Huan, Ho Tai, Chu Chen, and Gu Xing. Among them, there were 2 from Snowcloud, Sikong Mingyue and Second Sword. However, these 2 were extremely terrifying existences. Sikong Mingyue was almost certain to become one of the top 3, while Second Sword also had an extremely high chance of becoming one of the top 3. In Chu, there were 7. And the most dazzling was still the Emperor's Star Academy. Because out of the top 9, 4 of them were students from the Emperor's Star Academy. Luo Qianqiu, Orkan, Qin Wenin, and Luo Huan. None of the 4 were weaklings. The Emperor's Star Academy was indeed worthy of its title as the #1 academy in Chu. Its reputation was accumulated over countless years, and there would often be outstanding geniuses that graduated from the academy. Hence, those with outstanding talent were all willing to enroll in the Emperor Star Academy to cultivate. Other than the Emperor Star Academy, the godly General Martial Palace had Ho Tai, and the Royal Academy had Chu Chen. These two martial academies were supported by the royal clan. Other than the Emperor Star Academy, there was only the mysterious youth, Gu Xing, staring at the 9 people on the platform. They didn't feel any sense of complacency. Because they all understood that after this, there would be even more brutal battles waiting for them. The 9 of them would compete for the final rankings of the June Lin Banquet. They would also be facing the strongest opponents. It could be Luo Qianxiu, Xikong Mingyue, or even Second Sword. Following this, any battles they would face would be even more intense than the ones they had experienced before. The difficulty would also be higher. At this moment, from the seats of the Chu Emperor District, a total of 9 people walked up to the platform. Each of these 9 people held onto a square box, within which there was a jade tile. After which, the jade tile was delivered to the 9 people on the platform. In front of Qin Wendian, a person appeared. That person spoke, "Engrave your name on it." Qin Wendian naturally knew the rules of the June Lin Banquet. He didn't say anything, and merely engraved the 3 words Qin Wendian on the jade tile. After which, the attendant flipped Qin Wendian's jade medallion over and carried the box away. The 9 attendants stood together, and after that, they placed the 9 medallions into the same box, messing up the sequence of the medallions. After doing all this, they directly stood up and left, leaving the square box with the 9 jade tiles on the platform. Who is willing to flip the cards for the final round? Chu Tinjiao, who was seated on the Chu Emperor's seat, smiled as he spoke to the spectators. "Let me do it." A silhouette stood up. This person was none other than an expert from the Yi clan. "I'll have to trouble Senior Liang then." Chu Tinjiao laughed. Momentarily, Yi Luyang stepped onto the platform, walking towards the 9 jade tiles. He took out the 3 jade tablets and placed them in his hand. Then, with a wave of his hand, the 3 jade tablets floated in the air with their backs facing him. The names engraved on them appeared in front of the crowd. Luo Qianxiu, Second Sword, Luo Huan. These 3 names were imprinted into the eyes of the spectators, causing them to sigh in their hearts. Luo Huan was truly unlucky to actually be grouped with Luo Qianxiu and Second Sword. The second round of the June Lin Banquet would be a group battle. The 9 participants would be divided into 3 groups, and the first, second, and third rankers of each group would be determined. After which, the first ranker of each group would stand on the strongest stage, fighting for the top 3 positions. The experts who obtained second place in each group would also fight together to fight for the 4th to 6th place. The experts who obtained the 3rd place in each group would also fight together to compete for the 7th to 9th places. Luo Huan would have to contend against Luo Qianxiu and Second Sword for a higher ranking. Naturally, she would be unlucky, and there was a high possibility that she would be ranked last. After Yi Luyang displayed the 3 jade tiles to the spectators, he took out another 3 jade tiles and floated them in the air, facing the spectators. Upon seeing the 3 names, a strange expression appeared on the faces of the spectators as they involuntarily cast a glance at Qin Wendian. Earlier, Qin Wendian's ancient halberd had been pointed at Xikong Mingyue, his battle intent surging. Now they would have the opportunity to clash against each other. The names of the second group were Xikong Mingyue, Qin Wendian, Chu Chen. In that case, the names of the last group were already clear to see. However, Yi Luyang still displayed the names on the jade tile for the spectators to see. They were none other than Orkan, Gu Xing, and Ho Tai. Such a grouping caused the spectators to be filled with intense anticipation. For the final round of the June Lin Banquet, there were only 3 groups. Any of the battles would cause the blood of the spectators to boil. Luo Qianxiu, Second Sword, Luo Huan. Xikong Mingyue, Qin Wendian, Chu Chen. Orkan, Gu Xing, Ho Tai. Qin Wendian stood on the platform, only to feel an extremely sharp gaze locking onto him. Shifting his gaze over, he just so happened to see Xikong Mingyue rushing towards him. Even before the battle started, his battle intent was already raging. At this moment, in the Chu Emperor District, Chu Tianjiao stood up from his seat on the azure jadeite dragon seat as he smiled. I shall announce the rules for the final round of the June Lin banquet. The first, second, and third will be determined. The 3 first rankers will contend for the top 3 rankings. The 3 second rankers will contend for the top 4 and 6 rankings. The 3 third rankers will contend for the top 7 and 9 rankings. In addition, the 7th ranker will be given another chance to challenge the 3 rankers in the top 4 and 6 rankings. The 4th ranker will be given another chance to challenge the 3 rankers in the top 3 rankings. However, the challenger can only start from the last ranker. Chu Tianjiao slowly spoke, confirming the rules for the final round of the June Lin banquet. Okay, let's end it here for today. Tomorrow, the final ranking battle of the June Lin banquet will commence. Chu Tianjiao announced, causing expressions of dissatisfaction to appear on the faces of the spectators. The groups for the final round of the June Lin banquet had already been decided, but they still had to wait another day for the actual battles to begin. This kind of feeling was simply too unbearable. Let's go to Drunken Wonder to take a look. The groups have already been decided, and the payout rates for the individual battles have already been announced. This is an opportunity. Yeah, the opportunity has come. Every group of 3 will have 3 battles, for a total of 9 battles. The payout rates will also be announced, so we can give it a try. Many people rush towards the direction of Drunken Wonder, preparing to place their bets. Especially for those who had won a fortune from betting on the top 9 rankings, they naturally wouldn't miss out on this opportunity. Chapter 131. Qin Wendian didn't leave the platform. On the platform opposite him, Sikong Mingyue stood there, staring in his direction. Sikong Mingyue didn't say anything, but a faint killing intent gushed forth from him. His intent was clear even without words. Where are Qin Shang and Qin Ji? Qin Wendian asked Sikong Mingyue. Since Sikong Mingyue would target him because of a single sentence from Xiao LV. In that case, Sikong Mingyue should have an extremely good relationship with Xiao LV. He should know of Qin Shang and Qin Ji. Qin Shang, Qin Ji. An expression of contemplation appeared on Sikong Mingyue's face. After which, he stared at Qin Wendian. After receiving the news that their father was surrounded, they should have already rushed to the front lines. After all, they are the relatives of the crown princess of our snow cloud country. The snow cloud country wouldn't make things difficult for these 2 minor characters. Sikong Mingyue didn't place Qin Shang and Qin Ji in his heart. These 2 people had no value to the snow cloud country. Maybe I have to correct you. Sister Qin Yao has no relationship with the crown prince of Snow Cloud. She will never return to Snow Cloud country. Qin Wendian stared at Sikong Mingyue. The 2 of them were in a confrontation. The entire Snow Cloud country already knows that she is one of the candidates for the crown prince's wife. In that case, no matter where she is, she has to return. If not, where would the face of the crown prince of Snow Cloud go? Sikong Mingyue spoke as he slowly turned around, his back facing Qin Wendian as he walked away. You should worry about yourself. In tomorrow's battle, if Miss Qin Yao is willing to plead for mercy and apologize to the crown prince, perhaps I will go easy on you. Sikong Mingyue spoke with his back facing Qin Wendian. The apology he meant was naturally referring to Qin Yao staying in Chu and not returning to Snow Cloud. How arrogant! Qin Wendian stared at the departing back view of Sikong Mingyue. Back then, the crown prince of Snow Cloud must have made use of Qin Yao to form a deal with Chu Tianjiao. And now, he actually blamed Qin Yao for not returning to Snow Cloud? However, if Qin Yao were to remain in Chu, it wouldn't be good for the crown prince of Snow Cloud, Xiao LVL, to lose face. After all, Qin Yao couldn't give a single reason to stay. However, if back then Qin Yao had become the sacrificial lamb used by Chu Tianjiao to lure Qin Chuan and was controlled by the royal clan, the Snow Cloud country would have used another method. This opponent is not easy to deal with. If you can't do it, then don't bother contending for the top 3 positions. Luo Huan stood beside Qin Wendian as she spoke in a low voice. She had exchanged blows with Sikong Mingyue before, and she knew how tyrannical his attacks were. You don't want to compete? Qin Wendian inclined his head and stared into the distance. He was already standing on the stage of the Junlin banquet. How could he give up so easily? Looking up at the fighting ring, Qin Wendian saw many familiar faces. In the direction of the Mo clan, Mo Qingqing had a radiant smile on her face. She clenched her fists at him, as though she was encouraging him. In the direction of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, and Lu Yen, Yang Chen and Francis were all there, nodding their heads in acknowledgement. In the direction of the Emperor Star Academy, Teacher Mustang was smiling as he gazed in his direction. Not only that, behind Mustang, Qin Wendian could see a silhouette wearing a conical bamboo hat. This silhouette sat there silently, yet Qin Wendian was still able to recognize him. It was Ren Qianxing. The gazes of the spectators were filled with anticipation, hoping that he would be able to unleash his own radiance in the final round of the Junlin banquet. Although Luo Qianxiu was a student of the Emperor Star Academy, Luo Qianxiu didn't represent the Emperor Star Academy. In fact, it could even be said that the Emperor Star Academy wanted to obstruct him. He represented the 9 Mystical Palace. Orkan was also a student of the Emperor Star Academy, but because he was from the O clan of the royal capital, he represented the O clan more than the Emperor Star Academy. Only he, Qin Wendian and Luo Huan, were the purest students of the Emperor Star Academy. What the Emperor Star Academy hoped to see the most was Qin Wendian and Luo Huan's dazzling performance. Qin Wendian, upon seeing that those from the Emperor Star Academy had yet to depart, strode forth, arriving at the spectator stands of the Emperor Star Academy. "What's the matter?" Mustang smiled as he saw Qin Wendian walking over. "Teacher, I want to go to the Astral River Hall, but I don't have the authority to enter," Qin Wendian replied. "I'll bring you there," Ren Qianxing, who was wearing a conical bamboo hat, calmly spoke, directly opening the back door for Qin Wendian. "Okay." Qin Wendian nodded his head with a smile as he followed Ren Qianxing, heading towards the Emperor Star Academy. Today, the gambling dens of the royal capital, Heaven's Wonder, were all filled to the brim with people. This was especially so for the Drunken Wonder Inn, which was located close to the Chu Emperor district. The groups for the first round of the third round had already been determined, and the payout rates for the 9 battles were all revealed. In the first group, Luo Qianxiu, Second Sword, Luo Huan. Luo Qianxiu was the most favored, followed by Second Sword, and then Luo Huan. In the second group, Sikong Mingyue, Qin Wendian, Chu Chen, Sikong Mingyue was the most favored. As for Qin Wendian and Chu Chen, their odds were 50-50. In other words, for the battle between Qin Wendian and Chu Chen, regardless of who won, the payout rate would be 1/2. It all depended on who you believed in. In the third group, Orkan, Guxing Hotai. Orkan was the most favored, followed by Guxing, and finally Hotai. In each of the 3 groups, the most favored were Luo Qianxiu, Sikong Mingyue, and Orkan. The payout rates for these 3 to obtain the top 3 rankings were also the lowest. The payout rate for Qin Wendian to obtain the championship was still the same, 1/400. However, the payout rate for him to obtain the top 3 rankings was slightly different, 1/80th. But this wouldn't change anything, because there were still very few people who believed in Qin Wendian. It was simply too difficult for him to enter the top 3. Firstly, he would definitely lose to Sikong Mingyue. If he wanted to enter the top 3, there was only a single method, and that was to obtain the 4th or 7th ranking. After that, he would continue to slaughter his way through, fighting against the last person other than Luo Qianxiu and Sikong Mingyue. However, the difficulty of doing so was simply too great. It was practically impossible. As for Luo Qianxiu and Sikong Mingyue, both of them were deemed to be undefeatable. There was still no one in the Emperor Star Academy. The students of the Emperor Star Academy paid much more attention to the Junlin banquet compared to the other academies. This was because the students of the Emperor Star Academy were frequent guests of the Junlin banquet. They all hoped that one day, they would also be able to stand there, their names shaking the entire Chu country. 5th level of the Astral River Hall. Qin Wendian sat cross-legged. This time around, he didn't walk slowly like before. Instead, he walked up to the 5th level in a single breath. Inclining his head, he could see the starry sky and the astral river. Rings of runic inscriptions converged together, transforming into a terrifying fist light. From the top to the bottom, fist shadows filled the skies, directly piercing into his sea of consciousness. Boom! Qin Wentian's will unceasingly withstood the tremors, as though his mind was unceasingly ringing. However, he was still as steady as a boulder. Upon reaching the 5th level, he could still clearly see the runic inscriptions of the astral river, as well as the tremors of the incoming attacks. If it was someone else, they wouldn't even be able to sense it. This was something bestowed upon him by his powerful perception. After enduring the tremors for so long on the 5th level, Qin Wenyan gradually got used to the pressure of the attacks, and was able to withstand it. However, he still didn't recklessly advance upwards. Previously, when he entered the 6th level, he had experienced for himself how terrifying the attacks there were. The sky gradually darkened. In the astral river hall, there was a starry sky in the 5th level. However, other than the old guard, there was no one else in the vicinity of the astral river hall. The night deepened. At this moment, a female student who had just returned to the Emperor Star Academy was currently lying on the ground. She inclined her head and stared at the starry sky, as a smile appeared on her face. She had heard that there were 4 students from the Emperor Star Academy participating in the June Lin banquet. All of them were so dazzling. When would she be able to be like them? At this moment, a beam of light flashed over, causing the female student to be stunned. In the skies, it was as though another piece of the night sky had appeared, illuminating the entire Emperor Star Academy. The female student abruptly stood up, casting her gaze in the direction of the source of the light. In a certain direction, a resplendent burst of light, akin to the starry skies, erupted forth. It's the astral river hall. The light that flashed for a brief moment last time shone brightly again. The body of the female student trembled slightly, after which she sprinted in the direction of the astral river hall. When she arrived at the entrance of the astral river hall, her heart was filled with intense shock as she stared at the radiance of the 6th level. The 6th level, someone had stepped into the 6th level of the astral river hall. Which senior of the Emperor Star Academy was this? She had heard of the legends of the astral river hall before. Stepping into the 6th level meant that one would have the opportunity to form an innate connection with an astral constellation from the 6th heavenly layer. Normally speaking, even for terrifying existences at the Heavenly Dipper realm, they would only be able to form an innate connection with an astral constellation from the 4th heavenly layer. How strong would one's astral perception be when it came to the 6th level? Not only that, a terrifying astral perception could only allow one's consciousness to reach the astral river from the 6th heavenly layer. However, the pressure from there was sufficient to cause one's will to collapse. The night sky of the Emperor Star Academy was lit up, and the light didn't extinguish even after a long time. Those who remained in the Emperor Star Academy were all sighing in admiration as they speculated. To think that there was actually such a powerful senior in the Emperor Star Academy. Wasn't his astral perception a little too terrifying? The night grew darker and darker, yet the female student was still sitting in a corner far away from the astral river hall. Her eyes were slightly closed as though she was dozing off. At this moment, a slight movement could be heard. The female student abruptly opened her eyes, and after which, she saw the silhouette of a youth slowly walking out from the astral river hall. As though he could feel her gaze, the eyes of the youth shifted in her direction, before turning and departing. However, the heart of the female student pounded violently, and she involuntarily let out a cry of surprise. After which, she covered her mouth with her hands, as an expression of extreme shock appeared on her face. Who did she see? That person was none other than Qin Wenyan. Raising her head, the astral river hall was no longer lit up, and the starry skies were no longer visible. However, the heart of the female student was unable to calm down for a long time. Chapter 132. Qin Wenyan returned to his residence and began his cultivation. At this moment, his condition wasn't too good. In his dream, Qin Wenyan was situated under a starry sky. Above him, numerous runic diagrams frenziedly revolved and interweaved, forming a sky full of astral fist shadows that smashed down from the heavens. However, they didn't contain any power, because this place was Qin Wentian's dream. But inside the Astral River Hall, on the 6th level, the Astral River Hall's astral fist shadows continuously ravaged his will, causing him to experience endless agony. If it wasn't for the fact that his will was extremely strong, he wouldn't have been able to endure for so long. At this moment, Qin Wenin was using his dream to simulate the scene back then. His heart was still surging with emotions. From the 1st level to the 5th level of the Astral River Hall, he could feel that the resplendent runic diagrams had transformed into a black hole, transforming into terrifying fist shadows that pressed downwards. But when he stepped onto the 6th level, he already felt that it wasn't fist shadows, but rather astral fist shadows that smashed downwards, destroying the heavens and earth. Every single fist shadow was like a constellation. The magnificent scene of millions of constellations smashing downwards caused people to be deeply shocked. Especially at the instant when the attacks landed on his sea of consciousness, the millions of constellations converged together. It was no longer a single constellation. He could only see the flowing light of the constellations as his entire body trembled from the impact. Too magnificent. Qin Wenin inclined his head and stared at the night sky in his dream, completely immersed in it. After a long period of time, the astral energy in Qin Wentian's body seemed to be seething. After which, an astral heavenly hammer appeared in his hands as he abruptly smashed it downwards, manifesting a set of divine imprints. This divine imprint was akin to the night sky, stacked on top of each other. The stacked layers of the night sky seemed to be slowly circulating downwards. If I inscribe this divine imprint into a divine weapon, there would definitely be a huge boost. Maybe, I might even be able to inscribe a 3rd level mid-grade or even a 3rd level high-grade divine weapon. Qin Wenin drew in a deep breath, feeling extremely agitated in his heart. After which, he took out a brush and paper and started inscribing under the starry skies. After a long time, he carved many times and finally carved the 2nd painting in his life. It was still a blurry silhouette wielding an ancient halberd. This strike was as heavy as a mountain, and at the instant the ancient halberd pierced out, a terrifying vortex appeared. At the tip of the halberd, there seemed to be numerous stars transforming into beautiful arcs that shot towards the vortex, giving off an illusion that it could devour everything. This shall be the 2nd stance of the Great Dream Halberd Arts, the Fallen Star Stance. Qin Wenin mumbled to himself, naming this stance. Currently, the Great Dream Halberd Art that he created already had 2 stances. The 1st stance was Mountain Splitter, and the 2nd stance was Falling Star. The 2nd move would require him to condense star-like essence energy, but to him who could condense divine essence, this would not be too big of a problem. Standing up, Qin Wenin started to practice the 2nd stance of Fallen Star in his dreams. Being able to visualize and inscribe it was one thing, but if he wanted to use it in battle, the requirements would be much higher. It wouldn't be so easy. Yun Xing had naturally comprehended the Astral River Hall's starfall. It was just that it was impossible for him to condense 5 or 6 layers of the Astral River Hall's Astral River Hall into a whirlpool of starfall. He could only condense 3 layers of the Astral River Hall's 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 Astral River Hall. However, it was impossible for him to condense 5 or 6 layers of the Astral River Hall's Astral River Hall's Astral River Hall's Astral River Hall. Qin Wentian frenziedly cultivated, yet he still felt that there wasn't enough time. After all, no matter how fast Little Rascal's speed was, it would still take a long time to reach the Chu Emperor District. This was also the reason why there weren't many people in the Emperor Star Academy. Because the distance was too far, if one didn't have a demonic beast as a mount, they would have to waste a lot of time. In the end, Qin Wentian still wasn't able to perfect the Fallen Star stance. He hurriedly used Yuan meteor stones to replenish the astral energy in his body, causing him to sigh. Time passed too quickly. When the astral energy in his body was once again filled to the brim, Qin Wentian's will drifted into his sea of consciousness. Once again he saw the tiny astral being. This was the stone that his old fogey father had left behind for him. Once, he had seen many inconceivable things within it, and had even obtained the spirit refinement method, a heaven-defying cultivation art. Although it wasn't an innate attack technique, the value of the spirit refinement method was something that Qin Wenyan didn't dare to estimate. If news of it leaked out, the entire Chu country would definitely be in an uproar. The final battle is about to begin. I hope I'll be lucky. Qin Wenyan murmured in his heart. Feeling Sikong Mingyue's killing intent as well as his overwhelming strength, Qin Wenyan felt an immense pressure bearing down on him. With his current strength, it seemed that he still wasn't strong enough to obtain the first position of the Jun Lin banquet, especially since he had yet to completely master the fallen star stance. Hence, he hoped to try his luck with the tiny astral being. As his will drifted into the astral being, Qin Wenyan once again felt as though he was situated within a boundless astral river, within which there were many astral fragments. Qin Wenyan soared through the air. The astral energy on the Yuan meteor stones in his hands transformed into terrifying streams of light, frenziedly flowing into the tiny astral being. After which, Qin Wenyan's will locked onto a few astral fragments. He didn't mind expending a large amount of Yuan meteor stones. He wanted to see if he could find a way to increase his combat prowess. One by one, the memories from the astral fragments flowed into Qin Wenyan's mind. Only after Qin Wenyan consecutively lit up 10 of the astral fragments did he withdraw his will. Opening his eyes, he stared at the Yuan meteor stones on the ground, which were no longer flowing with astral energy. He could only feel his heart twitching slightly. If it wasn't for the fact that the Divine Weapon Pavilion had given him a large amount of Yuan meteor stones to support his cultivation, there was no way he would have been able to pay such a huge price. Yet he had only managed to light up 10 of the astral fragments. Qin Wenyan didn't have the time to feel heartache over the expenditure of Yuan meteor stones. He closed his eyes and started to digest the memories, hoping to find something useful. In the first memory fragment, his heart involuntarily trembled when he saw the scene within. He saw many experts engaged in a frenzied battle. These experts were all terrifying existences, and the current him had no way of coming into contact with them. And the reason why Qin Wenyan's heart was trembling was because he saw a certain person, Uncle Black. In the scene, Uncle Black's hands and feet were completely intact. His black hair draped over his shoulders, and he exuded a demonic aura. Qin Wenyan almost failed to recognize him. And beside Uncle Black stood a middle-aged man. This middle-aged man was someone Qin Wenyan had met before. He was a peak-level expert from the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, exuding an air of arrogance. Uncle Black stood beside him, as though he was his subordinate. This scene was extremely brief. When Qin Wenyan exited the memory fragment, his eyes were bloodshot, and his fists were tightly clenched, as though he was in extreme pain. Looking at the demonic aura of Uncle Black, it was hard for him to imagine that this was the crippled old man in his memories. Who was it that crippled Uncle Black? What sort of battles had he experienced? And who was that middle-aged man? Why was he present every time? Drawing in a deep breath, Qin Wenyan continued digesting the memories. Next, he saw many more scenes and he discovered a pattern. That middle-aged man was present in every scene. This caused a bold thought to appear in Qin Wenyan's mind. Could it be that the astral fragments in the tiny astral being were merely fragments of the middle-aged man's memories? In that case, didn't that mean that his memories were completely shattered, transforming into millions and millions of fragments? And the identity of the middle-aged man, could it be that he was his old fogey father? As he thought of this, great waves rose in Qin Wenyan's heart. According to Uncle Black, that mysterious stone was the only thing his old fogey father had left behind for him. After that, that stone transformed into the tiny astral being. If it was really like what he guessed, that the tiny astral being contained the memories of the middle-aged man, in that case, there was a high possibility that the middle-aged man was his biological father. From this, one could understand why Uncle Black would always silently protect him. Because Uncle Black was either a friend or a subordinate of his old fogey father, and there was a high possibility that they had a relationship where they were willing to die for each other. If not, Uncle Black wouldn't have taken care of Qin Wenyan even after he was crippled, watching him grow up. At this moment, Qin Wenyan seemed to have forgotten his original purpose of coming here, as he was immersed in his own imagination of his past. Only one last memory image remained. In this last memory image, there was a young man. The young man was surrounded by towering palaces, yet the stubbornness on his face seemed to be somewhat incompatible with the majestic atmosphere of the surroundings. He was sitting cross-legged, with a stubborn look in his eyes. After which, starlight revolved around his finger as he abruptly pierced it into his own body. At the same time, he chanted a spell, and there seemed to be a voice drifting into Qin Wenyan's mind. Instantly, the young man's entire body turned crimson red. Within his body, there seemed to be bloodline shackles appearing and disappearing. As his finger pierced into his body, the spell circulated, and the layers of shackles began to shatter unceasingly. The young man's figure was drowned in a blood-red glow as he screamed in agony. Qin Wenyan's heart trembled once more. After emerging from the memory image, his heart was heaving up and down violently. So this 12-linked chains needle technique was born because of this. Not only that, this set of needle technique should have been specially created for him. In Zhang Xian's memory, the young man's technique was almost identical to this set of needles. However, when paired with the young man's incantation, the bloodline shackles were completely destroyed. On the other hand, the 12 consecutive life-severing needles could only temporarily undo the bloodline seal. Uncle Black must have been afraid that I wouldn't be able to endure it, hence he created a cushioning needle technique to prevent me from exploding after I undid the bloodline shackles. Qin Wenyan sighed in his heart. The bloodline of the young man was exactly the same as his own. It seems like his guess was right. That young man was indeed a middle-aged man. There should be no mistake. Old Fogey Father left behind his life's memories for me. In that case, Old Fogey Father is truly dead. Qin Wenyan sighed as he stared at the starry skies. The stars were so resplendent that they were dazzling to the extreme. What his Old Fogey Father dared to do when he was young, why couldn't he do it? He, Qin Wenyan, wasn't abandoned. Not only that, there was a high possibility that his Old Fogey Father was an extraordinary character. In that case, all the more he mustn't disappoint his Old Fogey Father. Thinking of this, he closed his eyes. Astral light shone on his finger as he abruptly pressed it against his own body. The 12-linked chains needle technique was executed using his finger technique. To him, it wasn't difficult at all. At the same time, the blood in his body began to circulate in accordance with the spell. His blood began to roar. Chapter 133. The sky gradually brightened. Today, the final round of the June Lin banquet would begin. Today, the top 9 rankers of the June Lin banquet would be divided into 3 groups, and the final round would be held. Today, the number of spectators in the Chu Emperor District had also created history. The number of spectators in the past 2 days was even higher. All the inns and buildings in the vicinity were occupied by people. They either stood in front of the windows, or stood at the highest points of the buildings, gazing at the Chu Emperor District from afar. Everyone was filled with anticipation. How spectacular would the final round of the June Lin banquet be? The banquet had already been prepared, and the representatives of the major powers had all arrived. Chu Tianjiao, Xiao Lu and the rest also arrived. Staring at the boundless crowd, a smile appeared on Chu Tianjiao's face. The June Lin banquet hadn't been this grand in recent years. It seemed that the popularity of this year's June Lin banquet was extremely high. In the direction of the Star River Association, the vice leader of the Star River Association, Zhou Yin, personally arrived. Beside him sat Murin and a few other important figures of the Star River Association. Murin, it seems that you didn't complete the task I asked you to do back then. Zhou Yin spoke to Murin, causing Murin's countenance to stiffen. What Zhou Yin was referring to was naturally the matter regarding the painting Qin Wenyan had inscribed. Back then, Zhou Yin told him to bring the person who inscribed the painting to the Star River Association after obtaining it. President Sua, I've tried my best, but there might have been some mistakes, Murin replied in a low voice. Oh. Zhuayin faintly continued, I heard that the painting was inscribed by Qin Wenin, and last year in Sky Harmony City, you had the chance to recruit Qin Wenin into the Star River Association, but you offended him for no reason at all, allowing the Divine Weapon Pavilion to take advantage of you instead. Is this true? Yes, back then I tried to persuade him, but he was too proud and arrogant, and refused to join my Star River Association. Hence, I decided to hand him over to the Yi clan to be dealt with. As for what happened after that, I didn't expect it either. Murin's countenance was extremely unsightly. He didn't expect Zhuayin to investigate this matter. If not, how could he know so much about it? Zhuayin was a little displeased and snorted coldly. This Qin Wenin was very famous nowadays. How could he not know about this matter? Back then, if Murin had recommended Qin Wenin to the Star River Association, given Qin Wentian's talent, he would definitely be nurtured into a vice president. I wonder what rank he would be able to obtain in this year's June Lin banquet. Zhuayin silently mused. Not only him, at this moment, everyone was guessing what the final rankings of the June Lin banquet would be. In the direction of the Mo clan, Mo Qingqing's father was sitting there as he asked Mo Qingqing, Qingqing, what ranking do you think that brat will obtain? I don't know. Maybe I can obtain one of the top 3 rankings. Mo Qingqing smiled. Oh, you trust him so much? Father Mo stared at Mo Qingqing as he asked. It was extremely difficult to become one of the top 3 rankers. He naturally knew of Luo Qianqiu's background, as well as Xikong Mingyue. Xikong Mingyue was also someone the 9 mystical palace held in high regard. Even if Qin Wentian wanted to defeat them, it would be impossible. As for the other top 3 rankings, Orkan, Second Sword, Chu Chen, and Ho Tai were all present. It wouldn't be a simple matter to obtain that spot. No matter what rank he obtained, he should be proud of himself in this year's June Lin banquet. It's extremely rare to see someone with the ability to jump levels and challenge opponents. After all, his cultivation base is only at the 7th level of arterial circulation. It's just that the amount of energy contained within his astral energy seems to be far more terrifying compared to others. Most probably, this is due to the difference in the height of his astral souls and constellations. Father Mo murmured in a low voice. Other than this, Qin Wentian's strongest points were his proficiency in innate techniques, as well as his strange attacking methods. Spitting out sword light from his mouth, stomping on palm imprints, what level of arterial circulation and control of astral energy were required to achieve such a feat? Father Mo was extremely curious about this young man. Beside the azure jadeite dragon seat, Luo Qianqiu stood there. Beside him was a middle-aged man. Ever since the first day of the June Lin banquet, the middle-aged man had always been standing there. However, he rarely spoke. But at this moment his gaze shifted onto Luo Qianqiu as he stated, Qianqiu, today will have to depend on you. The number 1 position in the June Lin banquet will definitely be mine. Luo Qianqiu nodded his head. This was his mission. This time around, the number 1 position in the June Lin banquet would definitely be his. Uncle, please don't make Xikong Mingyue give way for me. I need him to go all out in this battle. Luo Qianqiu spoke in a low voice. If others were to hear this, they would definitely be extremely astonished. To think that even the June Lin banquet could be manipulated in the dark. In this world, as long as one had tyrannical strength, there was nothing that couldn't be controlled. The June Lin banquet was the same as well. The middle-aged man nodded his head, but in his heart he was silently musing that Luo Qianqiu was still too young. It was inevitable for the young to be frivolous. However, having lived for so many years, he understood this logic. Sometimes, in order to achieve one's goals, some methods were unavoidable. He came here with a mission. Luo Qianqiu had to step into the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion. In other words, the number 1 position in the June Lin banquet this time around could only belong to Luo Qianqiu. At this moment, Luo Qianqiu slowly walked out, and an instant later he stood on the first towering platform. Xikong Mingyue similarly walked out. However, the platform he walked onto was the second towering platform, because he was in the second group. The top 9 rankers of the Junlin banquet all walked up the platforms. Very swiftly, 8 silhouettes appeared on the first 3 platforms. However, there was still one person who had yet to arrive. 2 people appeared on the second platform. Xikong Mingyue and Chu Chen stood there, but Qin Wentian's silhouette was nowhere to be seen. Today was the day of the Junlin banquet. No matter how late he was, he shouldn't have come at this time. Could it be that Qin Wentian didn't dare to come? Chu Tianjiao didn't announce the start of the Junlin banquet. Instead, he waited for a period of time. However, as time passed, there was still no sign of Qin Wentian. This caused many to start whispering to each other. Could it be that Qin Wentian didn't show up because he was afraid of fighting against Xikong Mingyue? Even if he was afraid, he could just directly concede. Why did he have to be absent? Could it be that he didn't want to bear the stigma of admitting defeat? Why hasn't that fellow appeared yet? Mustang was somewhat anxious as he glanced at Ren Qianxing behind him. No matter what he does, there's no need to interfere. Since he did it, he naturally has his reasons. Ren Qianxing calmly replied, causing Mustang to be taken aback. Old Ren was truly open-minded. No matter what Qin Wentian did, he would always support him. Even if Qin Wentian was absent, there must be a reason. Let the first towering platform begin. Chu Tianjiao finally spoke, no longer wanting to wait. On the first towering platform, there were Luo Qianxiu, Second Sword, and Luo Huan. The first battle, Luo Qianxiu versus Second Sword. The old man beside Chu Tianjiao announced. Luo Huan walked to the side of the platform, leaving Luo Qianxiu and Second Sword standing there. A terrifying aura circulated around the two of them. Luo Qianxiu's entire body was filled with the power of lightning. Around Second Sword, sword qi churned wildly, as though it wanted to break apart the heavens. You are not my opponent. Luo Qianxiu inclined his head and stared at the skies. The final battle of the Junlin banquet had finally arrived. He had waited for this moment for a very long time. I'll only know after I try. Second Sword stepped out, as sword qi gushed forth. The current him was in an extremely dangerous situation. As Second Sword continued advancing, his sword qi grew stronger and stronger, transforming into a corporeal beam of sword light that shot towards Luo Qianxiu. At the same time, Luo Qianxiu's aura skyrocketed, as though he was howling. The aura he emitted broke through from the 8th level of arterial circulation to the 9th level. Before this, he had been fighting with a cultivation base at the 8th level of arterial circulation. Now, there was no longer any need to conceal his strength. The sword qi radiating from Second Sword froze for a moment before he finally slashed out with his sword. This was a gigantic sword that descended from the heavens, as though it wanted to split the heavens into 2 halves. However, Luo Qianxiu lifted his hands, as the shadow of the thunder god appeared behind him. In the air, a gigantic palm made of lightning appeared, directly blocking the sword light. The terrifying destructive might of the palm shattered the sword light. Boom! Stepping out, Luo Qianxiu's silhouette vanished. That palm of lightning blasted forth with a terrifying destructive might, destroying everything in its path. Second Sword slashed out in a frenzy. In that instant, tens of thousands of beams of sword light appeared. However, the palm of lightning transformed into a terrifying lightning serpent, coiling around the beams of sword light. After which, a terrifying surge of lightning energy was transmitted into Second Sword's body, causing him to tremble violently. Scram! Luo Qianxiu blasted out with his palm. That palm of lightning slammed into Second Sword, causing Second Sword's body to be flung through the air. When he finally stabilized himself, he bowed to Luo Qianxiu as he stated, "I've lost." Second Sword, he was utterly convinced of his defeat. Luo Qianxiu's strength is so strong. The hearts of the spectators trembled. So this was Luo Qianxiu's true strength? Too terrifying. Before this, he was at the 8th level of arterial circulation and had yet to meet a worthy opponent. But now, he had completely unleashed his brilliance. The spectators finally understood why the Drunken Wonder Pavilion had deemed Luo Qianxiu as the most popular candidate, and why they believed that he was destined to be the champion of the Junlin banquet. Second battle, second sword against Luo Huan. The old man continued. Luo Qianxiu walked to the side, leaving space for Luo Huan and second sword. Right from the start, second sword unleashed his strongest attack. The frenzied sword light didn't give Luo Huan any time to breathe. Even though her body was flexible, and even though her close combat abilities were terrifying, she couldn't even get close to second sword. In the end, Luo Huan was defeated. Not only that, she was defeated without any suspense. In that case, there was no need for the remaining battle between Luo Qianxiu and Luo Huan. For the first towering platform, Luo Qianxiu was ranked first. He would be fighting against the top rankers of the other two groups. Second sword was ranked second, while the powerful Luo Huan could only be ranked third. The gazes of the spectators shifted to the second towering platform, yet they still couldn't see the silhouette of Qin Wenyan. Only Xikong Mingyue and Chu Chen were present. Qin Wenyan, where was he? Did he really have to give up on the Junlin banquet? Chapter 134. The old man beside Chu Tianjiao glanced at the second towering platform as he spoke. The third towering platform, let's fight first. The Junlin banquet was the grandest event in Chu, it would be too much of a pity to miss it. Hence, the old man was willing to leave some time for Qin Wenyan, hoping that he would arrive in time. The first battle, Orkan versus Ho Tai. The old man announced. After which, Orkan and Ho Tai stood facing each other. Orkan wielded a long spear in his hands as his astral souls flickered. His entire person was akin to a long spear, and at this moment he gave off a feeling of sharpness. Raising his long spear, he pointed it towards Ho Tai. Instantly, a terrifying spear light gushed forth, and as he stepped out, the sharpness of his aura surged madly. Not to be outdone, Ho Tai released both of his astral souls. His first astral soul was the Heavenly Bull astral soul, while his second astral soul was the White Tiger astral soul. Both were terrifying beast-type astral souls. This had to do with the environment he grew up in. The godly General Martial Palace was situated within the Dark Forest, and didn't interact with the other martial academies. Their daily training was to survive in the wilderness, hunting demonic beasts to survive. Every single one of them had experienced the cruelest of trials, fighting against the various types of demonic beasts in the Dark Forest. Under the influence of such an environment, many in the godly General Martial Palace preferred to form beast-type astral souls. They believed that only beast-type astral souls would be able to grant them immense strength. Ho Tai's entire person emitted an incomparably violent aura. Every step he took caused the ground to tremble. His eyes were a demonic red, causing people to feel a sense of fear just by looking at them. However, Orkan didn't show any signs of weakness in the face of such a fearsome aura. That terrifying sharpness of his aura continued to blossom forth, growing stronger and stronger with each step he took. A terrifying vortex appeared in front of him. Abruptly, Orkan's body moved. Wherever his long spear passed, streaks of light would appear, as though wanting to break apart the void. Boom! Ho Tai directly punched out with his fist, colliding against Orkan's long spear. This scene caused the pupils of many in the crowd to involuntarily narrow. Wasn't this a little too ferocious? Of course, Ho Tai's fist was also a sacred art. That supreme power shook the spear, causing it to buzz and tremble. Orkan's spear trembled, and suddenly, several cold lights shot out from the spear, piercing towards Ho Tai's eyes. Ho Tai let out a furious roar and charged forward like a ferocious beast. His palms slapped forward like the palm of a beast, incomparably violent. Orkan's eyes were as calm as ever. Ho Tai's strength didn't cause his heart to waver in the slightest. His expression was as calm as ever, giving off a cold feeling. On the battle platform of the Junlin banquet, you had to be prepared that every battle would be a tough one. In the next moment, Orkan's left palm blasted out, causing tens of thousands of spear lights to explode out at the same time, piercing towards Ho Tai. Ho Tai howled in rage as their attacks collided. It was actually an attack against an attack. An instant later, the silhouettes of the two combatants were engulfed by a terrifying air current. Only an incomparably terrifying aura remained. The sharp sound of spear whistled through the air, like the roars of a demonic beast. The spectators were dazzled. No one had expected that Ho-Tai would actually be so strong, able to fight against Orkan to such an extent. "It's time to end this," Orkan calmly stated. After which, the spectators only saw a dazzling spear light blossoming like a demonic lotus, breaking apart Ho-Tai's attack and defense, piercing into his arm, causing Ho-Tai to retreat explosively, having no choice but to concede. Even if he couldn't contend for the top 3 positions, he had to at least contend for the top 4 and 6 positions. It wasn't worth it if he were to fight against Orkan until he was heavily injured. After resting for a moment, the second battle was between Ho-Tai and Gu Xing. The degree of excitement of this battle wasn't inferior to the first battle. Both Ho-Tai and Gu Xing were extremely crazy characters, and they were like two madmen, engaging in a frenzied battle. There were even scenes of the two of them clashing against each other, causing the spectators to be speechless. Did they not care about their lives? Ho-Tai was also speechless. He didn't expect that Gu Xing, who was on the same platform as him, was also a madman. Initially, he had thought that it would be easier for the group without Luo Qianqiu and Xikong Mingyue. But now, if he were to lose this battle, he would only be able to contend for the top 7 and 9 positions. He couldn't afford to lose such a reputation. The two of them fought with their lives on the line, and finally, Ho-Tai defeated Gu Xing. However, he himself was so exhausted that he almost collapsed. He directly sat down and began to use Yuan meteor stones to replenish his depleted astral energy. If he were to fight another battle like this again, he wouldn't even be able to participate in the Jun Lin banquet. Luckily, Gu Xing seemed to have relaxed a little at the end, and didn't have the intention to fight with his life on the line. Gu Xing seemed to be able to continue fighting, but he chose to give up. It seems like his purpose for participating in the Jun Lin banquet wasn't to obtain a good ranking. The spectators all had the same thought after watching this battle. But no matter what, a loss was a loss. The rankings of the third group were out. Orkan was ranked number 1, Ho-Tai was ranked number 2, and Gu Xing was ranked number 3. Next, only the last group was left. However, Qin Wendian still hadn't appeared. Xikong Mingyue, fight against Chu Chen. The old man spoke. "I concede." Chu Chen laughed, causing the spectators to be stunned for a moment before they understood. It seemed like Chu Chen wanted to preserve his strength for the later battles. Without Qin Wendian, he would directly be ranked number 2. In that case, he would be able to fight for the 4th to 6th position. If he could obtain the 4th position, he would still have the opportunity to challenge Orkan and fight for the top 3 positions. After all, he had personally witnessed how powerful Ho-Tai and Second Sword were. How could he dare to be careless? Hence, he decided to give up on his battle against Xikong Mingyue. Although giving up on a battle would be criticized by others, Chu Chen's decision was a wise one. The spectators silently mused. Chu Chen was extremely intelligent. Since this is the case, for this group, Xikong Mingyue is ranked number 1, and Chu Chen is ranked number 2. The old man started to announce the results. Qin Wendian must have missed out on the Jun Lin banquet. Many in the crowd felt pity for him. How grand was the Jun Lin banquet? It was truly a pity that he was absent during the final battle. Next, Luo Qianqiu, Xikong Mingyue and Orkan will fight for the top 3 positions on the first towering platform. Second Sword, Chu Chen and Ho-Tai will fight for the 4th to 6th position on the second towering platform. Luo Huan and Gu Xing will fight for the 7th to 8th position on the 3rd towering platform. In that case, let's start from the 3rd towering platform. The old man continued to announce the results, causing many to be filled with anticipation. Although it was a pity that Qin Wendian didn't show up, the following battles also caused the crowd to be filled with anticipation. "Qin Wendian, you bastard!" Fan Lu was on the verge of tears. He had extremely high hopes for Qin Wendian. How could he not appear? How could he not appear? If he had to fight, even if he didn't manage to obtain the top 3 positions, he would have accepted it. Many in the crowd felt pity for Qin Wendian. The elders of the Emperor Star Academy, the Mo clan, the Mu clan and the Divine Weapon Pavilion were all sighing in their hearts. I saw Qin Wendian yesterday. At this moment, a timid voice rang out from the crowd. Momentarily, the gazes of many in the crowd shifted to the owner of the voice. It was actually a young girl. Yu Xian, why are you here? Where is Qin Wendian? In the direction of the Emperor Star Academy, there was an elder who was Yu Xian's teacher. Upon seeing her, he couldn't help but ask. I saw him in the academy. The young girl replied in a timid voice, staring at the direction of the elder of the Emperor Star Academy. She fell silent, causing the gazes of many in the crowd to be fixated on her. Qin Wendian. I saw him walking out from the 6th level of the Astral River Hall. Yu Xian weakly replied. In an instant, the vast Chu Emperor district became exceptionally silent. Qin Wendian had walked out from the 6th level of the Astral River Hall? Although many of the people here weren't from the Emperor Star Academy, there was no one who didn't know of the Heavenly Star Pavilion, Astral River Hall and Dream Sky Forest. For those who knew of the Astral River Hall, they naturally understood what the 6th level signified. Are you joking? A cold voice drifted over. Qiao Mo stood up from the spectator stands. As a Yuanfu realm student, he naturally had a seat in the spectator stands. The last time he stepped into the Astral River Hall, he was merely at the 4th level. You actually said that he walked out from the 6th level? Not to mention Qin Wendian, none of the elders here have ever stepped into the 6th level before. Qiao Mo coldly stated. Yu Xian, don't speak nonsense. The crowd nodded their heads. Qiao Mo's words made sense. Stepping into the 6th level of the Astral River Hall was absolutely ridiculous. Even if it was the 5th level, they would still believe it. I saw it with my own eyes. Yu Xian's face flushed red upon hearing Qiao Mo's words. What an immature lass. Qiao Mo coldly snorted. You also entered the 5th and 6th level of the Astral River Hall. Did you see him ascending? No, but if you didn't, just shut up. Qiao Mo coldly stated. The June Lin banquet is about to commence. You don't have the qualifications to speak here. Go back. Yu Xian still wanted to say something, but upon seeing the sharpness in Qiao Mo's eyes, she ultimately gave up and retreated back into the crowd. Since you know that this is the stage of the June Lin banquet, what qualifications do you have to speak out of turn? Abruptly, another voice drifted over, causing a commotion in the crowd. After which, they only saw the silhouette of a youth walking out from the crowd. Behind this youth, there was even a snowy puppy. This youth was naturally none other than Qin Wendian. The instant they saw him, a smile appeared on the faces of many. This fellow had finally appeared. Fatty was scared to death. Fan Lu patted his fat chest as he spoke in a depressed tone. This fellow had finally arrived. Chapter 135. Qin Wendian walked to the bottom of the platform, as he inclined his head and stared at Qiao Mo, the corners of his mouth curling up in a mocking smile. When he arrived, he heard Yu Xian's words. Although he wasn't acquainted with Yu Xian, and didn't have a good impression of her just because of a few words, Qiao Mo's reaction made him feel extremely unhappy. Yu Xian said that he had stepped into the 6th level of the Astral River Hall. Regardless of whether it was true or false, this had nothing to do with Qiao Mo. Why would he berate others, and in such an intense manner? Obviously, it was because Qiao Mo was extremely unhappy with Qin Wendian. Qiao Mo narrowed his eyes when he saw Qin Wendian. After which, he coldly laughed. Could it be that you've really stepped into the 6th level of the Astral River Hall? No matter what, I'm still your senior brother. It's not good to speak to your senior brother in such a manner. If you want others to respect you, you must first respect yourself. How can you berate your own junior sister like that? Qin Wendian countered. You've only entered the top 9 rankings of the June Lin banquet. Why do you act as though you're already the top ranker? Qiao Mo mocked, causing strange expressions to appear on the faces of the spectators. These two geniuses of the Emperor Star Academy were actually fighting against each other? How interesting. Qin Wendian shifted his gaze, no longer looking at Qiao Mo. With a leap, he stepped onto the platform. However, Fatty Fan Lu was extremely unhappy. He shouted from below, "Last year, when a certain someone had a cultivation base at the 9th level of arterial circulation, he was only ranked number 5 in the June Lin banquet. When he was at the 7th level of arterial circulation, who knows which corner he was cultivating in? Yet he still has the cheek to mock others? It's as though he was the one who obtained the first place in the June Lin banquet." This sentence caused Chiyomo's countenance to stiffen, as he stared at Fan Lu with a cold glint in his eyes. There are so many elders in the Emperor Star Academy, yet a certain someone jumped out to spout such arrogant words. Those who didn't know better would think that he was the most senior in the academy. Fan Lu continued, his words causing Chiyomo's countenance to turn incomparably ugly to behold. Glancing at the gazes of the surrounding elders, Chiyomo's countenance stiffened as he sat down, trembling uncontrollably. In his heart, he wanted nothing more than to kill Fatty Fan Lu with a single palm strike. After Qin Wendian walked up the platform, countless gazes landed on him. As for what Yu Xian had said earlier, they had already forgotten about it. After all, they didn't really believe it in their hearts. What they wanted to see was the final battle of the June Lin banquet. It shouldn't be too late. Qin Wendian inclined his head, staring at the rising sun in the sky. The smile on the face of the youth was as radiant as the sun. As to why he was late, it was because he had experienced a terrifying nightmare last night. The awakening of his bloodline had almost devoured him whole. Luckily, he had managed to endure it, and after he recovered his composure, he immediately rushed over here. How could he miss out on the arena of the June Lin banquet? "Uncle Black, during today's June Lin banquet, will you be silently observing me?" Qin Wendian stared at the skies as he murmured in his heart. That damned old fogey of a father would also be observing his performance. There was also the anticipation of the teachers of the Emperor Star Academy, Mo Qingqing, Mu Rou, Luo Huan, Fatty, and the Divine Weapon Pavilion. How could he, Qin Wendian, fail? "Senior, my apologies for being late. Luckily, I made it in time for the June Lin banquet. I hope Senior won't blame me." Qin Wendian spoke to the old man seated beside the throne. "You've already missed the group battles. Not only that, the rankings for each group have already been released. What do you think we should do?" That old man stared at Qin Wendian with unhappiness in his eyes. After all, Qin Wendian had already missed the time for the group battles. Initially, he had wanted to wait for Qin Wendian, but he didn't manage to do so. The final battle shouldn't have started yet, right? Qin Wendian cast a glance at the 3 towering platforms. He discovered that there were only Luo Huan and Gu Xing on the 3rd towering platform. The rankings for each group have already been determined. Next, we shall fight for the final rankings. The old man spoke. "Since that's the case, can Senior just treat it as me admitting defeat for the first 2 battles?" Qin Wendian spoke. Since he was late, he should be punished. Hence, he would consider the 2 battles as his loss. The old man contemplated for a moment before nodding his head. "Since you've already admitted defeat for the first 2 battles, there's nothing more I can say. Now, I shall announce that you are ranked number 3 in that group. Now, please head to the 3rd towering platform to fight for the 7th and 9th rankings." "Many thanks, Senior." Qin Wendian bowed. After which, his silhouette flickered as he appeared on the 3rd towering platform. There were already 2 silhouettes here. They were Luo Huan and Gu Xing. "Smelly brat, you actually dared to be late on such an important day?" Luo Huan glared at Qin Wendian. "Didn't I rush over immediately?" Qin Wendian laughed. "Are you confident?" Luo Huan asked. "Not too bad." Qin Wendian lightly nodded his head. "It's just that I didn't sleep well last night. Time was too tight. Sadly, the June Lin banquet can no longer be postponed. Okay, the first battle, Luo Huan versus Qin Wendian." The old man beside the throne spoke. Luo Huan smiled as she glanced at Qin Wendian. After which, she turned to the old man and stated, "Senior, I forfeit this battle." Luo Huan forfeited the ranking battles of the June Lin banquet, allowing Qin Wendian to pursue the rankings that belonged to him. As long as Qin Wenyan obtained the 7th ranking, he would be given a chance to continue challenging the higher rankings. The second battle, Gu Xing versus Qin Wenyan. The old man spoke again. I forfeit. Gu Xing spat out, his words causing countless people to be stunned. Was there a need to be so dramatic? Now that Qin Wenyan had returned, the two of them forfeited at the same time, allowing Qin Wenyan to succeed? This was equivalent to Luo Huan and Gu Xing directly sending Qin Wenyan to the second towering platform, allowing him to contend against the 4th to 6th rankers for a better ranking. In that case, do the two of you still want to fight? The old man glanced at Luo Huan and Gu Xing. No need, I forfeit. Gu Xing calmly replied. After which, he sat down on the ground, as though everything in the outside world had nothing to do with him. Such a situation caused many to feel pity. The 3 participants from the 3rd group actually didn't even have to fight. But luckily, the following battles would definitely be extremely fascinating. Qin Wenyan is temporarily ranked 7th. Luo Huan is ranked 8th. Gu Xing is ranked 9th. The old man calmly announced. After which, his gaze shifted onto the second towering platform. On this platform, there were only 3 participants, Second Sword, Chu Chen and Ho Tai. The first battle, Second Sword versus Ho Tai. As the sound of the old man's voice faded, the atmosphere instantly tensed up. Looks of anticipation could be seen in the eyes of the spectators. Second Sword was very strong, but unfortunately for him, his opponent was Luo Qianqiu. Hence, he could only be defeated. However, he used his absolute sword techniques to suppress Luo Huan. His sword techniques were tyrannical, similar to Orkan's spear techniques. Based on the payout rates given by Drunken Wonder, Second Sword and Ho Tai were both favored to enter the top 3 rankings. However, Ho Tai's battle with Orkan was extremely intense. Now that the two of them clashed, the spectators were filled with anticipation. Who would be the victor? The astral souls of both of them erupted forth. Second Sword wielded a sharp sword, while Ho Tai transformed into a terrifying ancient demon. The two of them instantly clashed together. The terrifying collision caused the hearts of the spectators to pound unceasingly. The platform seemed to be engulfed by the sword light and the demonic qi. That terrifying aura enveloped the entire space. After a long period of time, Ho Tai consecutively roared out 9 times, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. His fists that were as violent as a demonic beast destroyed the sword light, and after which his fist landed on Second Sword's defensive sword light, causing Second Sword's body to be directly flung through the air. Ho Tai's movements hadn't stopped yet. He soared up into the air and chased after Second Sword, landing 2 more punches on him, forcing him off the platform. Ho Tai had defeated Second Sword, causing many to sigh in admiration. It was too terrifying. It seemed that although the payout rates given by Drunken Wonder could be used as a reference to one's strength, it wasn't completely accurate. Ho Tai's popularity was slightly lower than Second Sword's, but he had actually defeated Second Sword. You guys take a short break. The first towering platform, Orkan against Sikong Mingyue. The old man calmly spoke. He actually wanted the battles to be staggered, giving those who had just fought some time to rest and not delaying the Junlin banquet. There wasn't much suspense in the battle between Orkan and Sikong Mingyue. Although Orkan was also very strong, Sikong Mingyue was still Sikong Mingyue. Just like what Heaven's Wonder had predicted, Orkan had already locked in the top 2 of the top 3 rankings. Although in theory, there was still a possibility of overturning the rankings, the possibility was simply too small. As for Qin Wenyan, he was currently sitting cross-legged, like a quiet cultivator. It was as though everything happening in the outside world had nothing to do with him. He had yet to completely comprehend the second stance of the great dream halberd art, Fallen Star. How could he miss out on such an opportunity? Next, he would have to face the most intense battles. He had to adjust his condition to the peak and accept the challenges that belonged to him. Second Sword against Chu Chen. The voice of the old man drifted over, causing the gazes of the spectators to be fixated on the second towering platform. Second Sword had already been defeated once. This time, he wouldn't allow himself to be defeated again. If not, Snowcloud Country would become nothing more than a foil. Earlier, when Chu Chen fought against Sikong Mingyue, he directly admitted defeat, conserving his strength. Nobody knew exactly how strong he was. But when he clashed against Second Sword, everyone knew that this was the first time Chu Chen had released both of his astral souls. What's that first astral soul? It's actually a scepter? Someone in the crowd stared at one of Chu Chen's astral souls, as they exclaimed in shock. The Amethyst Astral Soul is an astral soul condensed from the Emperor Amethyst constellation. It's the symbol of an emperor. Who would have thought that Chu Chen would also have the ability to form a connection with the Amethyst constellation? Chu Tianjiao's first astral soul is also the Amethyst constellation. Someone sighed. In the 9 astral rivers, there were many bizarre constellations. The Amethyst constellation that represented the emperor was one of them. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.